And I would like to call the Concord School Committee meeting into order. Note that we are being recorded.
I'll call the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee meeting to order. Our first order of business is to go into executive session. The Concord School Committee and the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 2 of the Open Meeting Law to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to discuss strategy with respect to the collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and return to open session at approximately 6:30.
Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Is that
For both districts?
I would second for both.
All in favor for the roll call for the
roll
regional?
call?
Rainey, aye?
For both.
For both, correct?
Uval, aye for both.
Booth, aye, both.
About aye for both?
Johnston, aye for both.
Modell, aye, region.
And we should note that Eva Mustafi has not yet joined us, but will join us in executive session when she gets here. All right, you back?
Bring the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee meeting back to order.
And I will bring the Concord School Committee meeting back to order. Note that we are being recorded. Welcome.
Public comment, I don't see any blue sheets. Anybody chomping at the bit? Why don't we hear from our liaisons so they can go
Just turn your mics on, Rose, please.
do schoolwork.
Right.
So there aren't many like sports updates right now, just because like the season's just starting. But just for like student stress and all that, midterms are starting next week, so that's like what everyone's talking about. So we have our first half of midterms are next week, and the second half of midterms are the week after.
It was as a joke today. I was kind of like, "Oh, guys, we're going to the school committee tonight. Anything you want to share?" And a lot of people were like, "Just give us less homework." I think.
We don't give you any homework.
I mean, that's what I just said. But an interesting point that was brought up was that apparently, like, kids do better if they're surrounded by a more colorful environment. And someone actually brought up an interesting point about that, and then was telling me about like all these facts and statistics. And he was saying that he wished that there was more. He actually did say let's just put a garden in the hallways, which is a little far-fetched, but he did say that
That's
having
a great idea.
Yeah, like actually having like plants and flowers around the classes would actually be a lot better for students, which I mean, I don't know the whole science and psychology behind that, but he went into it and I thought it was pretty interesting, so I thought I might bring that up.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I saw, just because I get the newsletter as a parent there now, that Pets and People is coming on Monday, which is exciting. So the therapy dog will be there. Very exciting.
I told you it was going to go
Gonna
right
happen.
from this meeting to the high school. That's
love
what
it.
happened. So
Yeah, I
it's
saw the
exciting.
flyer for it today.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad. That's good.
So we're kind of in that mode of getting back from break. We're between
Yeah.
seasons, tests coming.
Yeah, exams are already so soon. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what everybody's focused on right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's an interesting schedule, especially since
It
we
is.
have a reading day, which I guess is inspired from what college students experience.
Mhm.
And then that's a week from tomorrow, and then we have 2 exams on Thursday, 2 exams on Friday, and then we go to a 4-day weekend, which is
Yeah.
honestly, I like it.
And then we have another reading day, and then 2 more exams.
Yeah.
And some of that's because of how the snow days have moved things around.
Right.
So we're glad it feels good.
Yeah.
We did put some different parameters in place under the challenge success mindset of no new content a certain period before exams, the reading day, just trying to slow things down so kids could really feel adequately able to prepare.
Yeah, I think the extra
So-
reading day in between the 4-day weekend and the exam is actually really helpful, because I feel like
Yeah.
coming right from the 4-day weekend,
Yeah.
it's a little hard.
Would have been
Yeah.
tough,
The
yeah.
extra day is kind of a good day to review with your teachers.
Yeah.
That's good. So the schedule seems, what's that?
I'm done with my exams after the first week.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's nice.
Yeah, no.
But in general, the feedback is that schedule is working nicely because people have a little more time to,
Yeah, especially with
To
all
settle in between.
the snow days, I think we need the extra time to be
Yeah.
able to.
Again, the best laid plans, you still end up potentially, in
them.
2 out of my 3 winters here, we've had to regroup it as the exams come up because the snow has changed the plan, so.
right,
But we're glad for the feedback that the plan that changed is a positive.
is working. Yeah, that's great. It's very helpful,
Yeah.
especially as we are looking at calendars now.
Yeah. Great,
Thank you, guys.
yeah.
Thanks for coming, even with that update.
You're welcome to stay, but
Yes, of
I have
course.
to leave early to
You can
study.
leave.
Go study.
Yes, feel free.
still have exams before exams.
Yeah. Watch.
Thanks.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate you
Have a good night.
coming, thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Reading of the minutes, we have one open session joint meeting minutes of 12/10/19. Is there, I have a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion, changes to those that he needs to propose? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Chairs and liaison reports, I don't have anything to give.
I don't have much new, except Happy New Year, everyone. We haven't done all that much while we've been off on vacation, so welcome back.
Speak for yourself.
Any other, well, not that I've done much, but, any liaison reports?
We had the capital planning
Yes,
task force
thank you,
meeting
Cynthia.
yesterday.
Oh, good, how'd that go?
So we have a fairly aggressive schedule. We're trying to figure out, so we back solve for when we're gonna have a public hearing. The thought was we have something to discuss instead of having sort of an open public hearing. So we want to have some kind of proposal, options, that kind of a thing. So we're gonna have a mini report. So we can schedule, I think, 4 meetings between now and beginning of March. We'll try and have the public hearing. So hopefully I'll have a more substantial update next time, but yeah, people are getting to do a lot of work, so.
That's great. Thank you for being part of that. Oh, lest, of course, you think there's nothing going on to the middle school. We're updating on that later in more detail, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna touch on that now.
Thank you. Correspondence?
Yeah, I actually was hoping I could start with a couple of just comments and updates, some of which people are aware of and others I thought would be great to share publicly. I sent the extensive cultural competency letter that I've been referencing the last couple of weeks, which was a really big overview of the work we've been doing and forecasting the work to come. And I just want to be sure I mention that. And we're reworking the web page so we can do some work by themes and do more of that, put it all in one place sort of approach. So that may be a good start to that. We're doing the same with environmental sustainability. So just wanted to mention that did go out and it does live on the web page under my stream right now, but we'll also get more. So hopefully it was helpful. I got a couple emails back from parents, so I think it did help people sort of see the big picture. I think for those of us in the work, it was really great to capture the depth of what's been going on in the last year or so. So more to come. And then otherwise, we've been approached by both CC at Play and youth baseball and softball to do some upgrades to the fields. Cynthia's agreed to be part of that. We need a big picture plan, some different projects to look at drainage and lighting and compacted soil that's really hard to play on. And so we're gonna get a meeting together and talk on what those options are and how we might approach it. All of this is coming with the generosity of potential project support. So
That's fabulous.
more to come. I just wanted to let you know that Cynthia volunteered to be part of that. So we're gonna get a meeting together over the next couple of weeks and then we'll keep everyone in the loop what the ideas are. Right now it's very conceptual, not any more than that.
Great,
Yeah.
terrific, thank you.
So we did have a couple of emails that came in and they were in support of changing the bus fleet over to non-carbon. So moving on, ongoing business or capital article. Lori, would you like to?
Yes, I would.
Do you want to do calendar first?
Oh, yeah, I think if we could, thank you, Dave, for
Right.
reminding me. We're awaiting the engineer from Gale that's been working on this, so we thought if we flipped the agenda items, he's
Sure.
due at 7 or so. So if we did the calendar first and then got started on the other topics, I think he'll come in somewhere in the middle part of that. Thank you for the reminder.
Okay, do we have
And I would move to amend the agenda to take up the draft calendar before the capital article.
Second.
all in favor for
Aye.
both?
I for both.
Aye for both. Second for both.
It's like, oh, I guess that's
Yeah.
joint, huh? Yeah.
Aaron, did you send the agenda out for today?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So the calendar is a draft tonight, and I'm gonna stress that word because there's still some moving pieces. And Cynthia has been there for these discussions, so please feel free to jump in at any point. Couple of things that proved to be pretty significant discussion points. Labor Day is not until September 7th this year. So we've had a lot of discussion about how that lays the timing out prior to the 7th. Both contracts have an earliest start date of August 27th if Labor Day is on the 7th, so we've had that as a reference point. This obviously, just so everyone's aware, there's a committee that sits together with representation from both the CTA, the CCTA, school committee, administration, and we try to come up with something that meets everybody's needs. It's been a pretty engaged process here because of all the very interesting moving pieces.
And they have elementary school rep and then middle school, so those are different animals. No.
Yeah.
Yes.
So after a lot of discussion, and you can ask us for how much detail you want on how we got here, we have proposed a calendar that comes back on the earliest date staff are contractually available, which is the 27th of August. So we'd have 2 professional days on a very unusual Thursday and Friday. Students returning Monday the 31st. The contracts also have the Friday before Labor Day as a day off, so that would lead us a 4-day week into the 4-day weekend, and that would be how we open school. A couple of other highlights would be the professional, let me classify this. We are still debating the high school conference date, and actually as of this morning, Cynthia, we started debating the middle school conference date again. So what you see here is draft. It says professional day on it. Those are really in reference to the conference days, both of them right now listed in November. The K
Okay.
in November, the 6 through 8 days listed on the 10th. The high school is listed on the 5th. We are still deliberating over the best timing of those. The middle school has typically been later, closer to the end of the first trimester. The high school debate has been over. We had put it at the end of October this year to be ahead of the November 1st college deadlines for the seniors, to try to give them a day off before the deadline instead of right after. So we've been gathering student data. We've had feedback from teachers that it had some other impact because it also, of where it falls next to the end of the quarter. So we're wrestling with the pros and cons, and they're going to continue to wrestle until the 21st when we bring you a firm recommendation.
Okay.
All right. The conference day for K-5 feels solid there, which would be the 4th of November. One other change in December we're proposing, if you look at where the holidays fall next year, another intriguing calendar with Christmas on Friday. So the committee had discussion about a half day on the 23rd, which has been a request I've gotten ever since arriving from different places. And we thought next year might be the year to look at it, given we're getting out on Wednesday for the holidays. The return date then, New Year's is also on Friday, so we'd be back on the 4th.
Do we have a power here to move Christmas?
Just the days around and how we
No,
adjust.
I just want to know.
The professional day for the 6 through 12, that this year, as they spoke so eloquently, it's actually been attached to the Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
We actually are proposing shifting it to the week after because of the break in semesters. So that's that recommendation. We had tried it on a Tuesday to try to sync up the availability of pre-K through 12 for professional development. We think we can come at that through the early release opportunities across the district and allow the high school to have the full day that works better with their semester calendar. Other than that, second conference day for the elementary kids is on April 7th. And I think the rest is pretty straightforward. It's worth noting, because of how this all falls, we're a little bit further into June right off the bat. So that is what drove the decision to start as early as possible. If you were to consider starting later than the teachers on the 27th and the students on the 31st, you're pretty quickly into the week of the 21st of June. So that's the rationale, that's the proposed draft. We've got those conference dates to work on between now and our next meeting. We're happy to hear any feedback. I think that would be important to have us take it back to the committee. It was not an easy place to get to this discussion. We had surveys happening at both secondary and elementary, and they weren't all syncing up, so the committee had to just put a recommendation of what it thought best, knowing there was mixed opinion among the teaching ranks, which we're gonna allow for discussions.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. So on the professional days that are conference days.
Yes.
So traditionally, I know elementary has 2 conference days, so we have fall and spring. Having the middle school and high school ones that early, bringing them to November is earlier than we've done in the past, as you mentioned.
The high school is typically within that.
Oh, it is,
that
okay,
range.
okay.
The middle school is usually
The middle
not.
school is
I
usually
think we're
not.
actually gonna move the middle school one out to the end of the trimester again.
Okay,
That
got it.
seems to be where we were heading this morning.
Okay, because that was more my question is there enough, do they have enough time under their belt to
And way back, it used to
have
be in
a weighty
December.
discussion, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
The elementary
so
is where
that's
they
still
want
in-
it, from what we heard.
Yeah,
The high school is down to within the last week in October or the first week in November is
Okay.
their deliberation. The middle school, we actually looked at it with new eyes this morning and think we might want to move it out to the end of the trimester.
okay, got it. And then, the other question was, with that start date on the Monday, freshman orientation then becomes the Friday before. Right?
Yep,
Yep.
and that's happened many times before.
It has,
Yes,
on a Friday.
Yes, people
And-
don't love it, but,
Yeah.
as we said, they said many kids are already doing preseason sports. Teachers are
True,
here, families are here. If you were telling elementary
high school,
school
right.
students to be there on a Friday, that would probably be a different conversation.
But because the high school sports are starting, that's a good
Yeah.
point, okay. Just curious
no,
how that's
yeah.
gone in the past
Yeah,
and whether it
yeah.
meant that orientation day attendance was down or anything like that.
Usually the ninth graders are so eager to participate, it's, sort of like, they're usually, I don't think we've ever seen it drop because it's on a Friday or.
Okay, well, that's good.
I have a question about June. The finishing on the 15th is a difficult finish day for the high school. On one hand, the Q5 will go over a weekend, and on the other hand, the 5 snow days will go over the next weekend.
Well, 5 snow days are always gonna go over a weekend, no matter what day you end on.
Yeah.
If you have five
Unless
days
you,
a week.
unless you finish. Yeah, you're right. But it's a difficult, this cutting the Q5 over a week. It's a difficult, it's just a difficult situation. I think.
Yeah, I see why you're saying that. I think I come into it maybe with a different lens than anyone else. That I expect we're gonna have a couple of snow
gonna
days.
That's what I was just gonna say.
Sorry?
I expect there will
You
be a
kinda
couple
have
of
to-
snow days, and it pushes out a little bit.
So it'll be the 18th or 21st.
Yeah.
Right, you never know how many
Maybe
snow
we'll
days you're
adjust
gonna have,
Q5.
it's usually at least a couple.
Yeah.
Which means it's
Yeah.
not likely to end on a Tuesday, we don't know when it's gonna end.
And we're very accustomed to revisiting the Q5 dates once we're into March.
Yeah.
That's very much been our habit, just like with the midterms, we
Mhm.
have usually had to
Right.
adjust.
Shift a little.
Yeah. It's a good point, though, I agree with you. I just think it's likely to
I
shift.
have never been part of these discussions, but if there is a way to finish the year on the 11th and then the snow days on the 18th.
Yeah, that
So I
virtual
think-
snow day thing was the way to do that, and the state's
yeah,
not
but
allowed.
11 to 18 makes much more. If there is a way, I don't
We
know.
couldn't get to the
But
last,
if
there's
you-
no way.
Really never been.
We'd have to
on
be
this,
get rid of a vacation or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That might happen some year.
I don't know. I'm just I'm
We've
looking at
considered that in
it.
the past. We've considered
I
that.
know,
in the
well, a lot of
past.
districts have, let's see how we land with the snow days.
Yeah.
Lori, you never confused me as a parent. Nonetheless, looking at our terminology, should we be distinguishing between professional development
Yes.
time and parent conference time?
Yes, we're gonna clean that up, we always do.
Okay,
That's
Somewhere from the last meeting, which literally happened, Thursday of last week,
great.
and getting
Okay.
this to the posting on Friday,
Yeah,
we
no
just
problem. Just
threw the
thank
wrong
you.
language in it.
Okay.
We were
No, thank you.
pushing to get it ready for tonight, so thank you, yes, totally agreed, Cor.
Good, thank you. Thank the committee for their work to date on this.
And I would
Yeah,
say, they formally survey teachers. It was sort of walking around,
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
they had really good, and they had a lot of the feedback about, the kindergartners having to have a full week of class, and maybe trying to figure out ways to
Yeah.
mitigate that stress of kids who maybe never been in a classroom setting, going to school for 5 days or 4 days.
Right.
I think we need to be reminded, we've been hearing occasional requests for a couple of months for this, but our timing has to be what it is.
Yeah.
It takes a while to
I would actually-
do what you just described.
I'd actually hoped to
Faster
bring it to you in December, and we got into it and realized it was complicated
Yeah.
and had to slow down, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I hope the start date is pretty firm, but,
I
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Unless you all give us big changes to make on the start date, I think we've settled it, so.
Good.
I think that makes sense.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
so we'll bring it back in
Okay.
2 weeks for a vote.
so moving on to the capital article. Lori, can you,
Yeah, Jared and I are gonna open it up. John's here from Gale, so John Perry's here, and we're glad for that, and there'll be a moment. I'm gonna just try to put some framework around this, so we have what's hopefully a really thoughtful but organized discussion. So we've updated a little bit of numbers and timelines and just some baseline facts. I've sketched out, having done a lot of work to better understand the questions of the committee over the last week or so, to try to categorize those. So as we discuss, we can talk in chunks rather than maybe hopping all over. And then just to sort of outline what the options essentially are. So Erin's gonna pull up my slides. Erin, if you don't mind staying close, it's only a few slides so we can shift things around. So where you left off in December, because we're leaving the design within the article, that's your number for tonight, that you're considering a warrant article to go forward with parking, design and construction for $848,410. General sense of the timeline, I don't know that we've spent a lot of time on this, but we thought it was important just to highlight, just so we're all on the same page. Generally 2 to 3 months for design and permitting. I'm gonna put it at least just because I know of the high school property and the water, and it may be a little longer than typical. Out to bid for a month, once you've got a design to use, to drive the bid, and then 2 to 3 month construction. So we mapped that against the timing of approval at town meetings, which are now late April. So as you map that, what happened as we put it on the actual calendar is because of the time of year and seasons attached, you start to lose time along the way just because of potential hiccups. So design being complete in July puts you into permitting. We suspect that because of summer calendars and schedules of just even the committees that we have to work with not being as often and frequent, it's most likely gonna take a little longer. We pulled up, like the NRC, Natural Resource Commission here at Concord, meets 2 to 3 times a month typically, except in July and August when they meet once. So just basics like that may slow you down. That would likely result in permitting in the fall. Assuming we get permitting, I don't want us to miss that point in this, assuming we get permitting about impervious surface and watershed. The bid process then would go out in the fall. However, this is where it gets to be a bit of an unknown. If we're too late into the fall, you're gonna bump up into the winter to actually start construction, which is a limited a little bit of a limited opportunity in the winter for putting in a parking lot. So, so that's a lot of high-level tentative pieces. We just thought it was worth sort of sketching out where we're at, given the kind of context of how we're coming in. So Erin, do you mind flipping it? So the things I think we need to talk on tonight, and we're gonna come back to this in a minute. I think we have a sustainable discussion to have. Traffic's been mentioned over the last week to me. I think there's a town meeting process, and by that I mean both logistics and procedural, but I also think there's a political conversation in that. And then the proposal and construction process itself, which is what John's here to answer questions that you have. And we may reverse the order of these, and John can go first. That might actually be really helpful. And then Erin, one more. I do have just reminders and recommendations all mixed here together. It's not as organized as I might wish, but it's the place I landed this week. I am going to recommend, as we finish this discussion tonight before we go to vote, that no matter what the outcome of the vote is, we look at, this is supposed to say in replacement of the budget subcommittee that hasn't really been active. I think we have bandwidth to take on another subcommittee that's going to focus on the capital article and the parking situation and all those topics I just said. So I'm sorry that's incomplete, but that's my thinking. A subcommittee focused on, I didn't want to call it the parking subcommittee, maybe there's a better word, but that's the idea. If nothing else, it'll keep all those topics that I just mentioned with a structured place to be spoken on, action steps, outcomes, reviews, feedback to the committee. I'm craving some structure here, so that's my suggestion. A reminder tonight then on process, if you vote to approve the article, is a placeholder in the Concord warrant article, not a given that you're gonna leave it in and move it come town meeting. I'm just reminding you of that. Your decision tonight is about placing it on the Concord warrant article. You still have choices to not move it all the way up until town meeting. It doesn't work the other way around. So opportunities happen one direction, not both. And then just a final reminder, and I guess this is where I give you my personal opinion. I was surprised you decided to tackle this year, coming off of where we were last year, and I just wasn't sure there was a readiness factor. I'm still not sure there's a readiness factor consistently in terms of everybody feeling that it's the right time and place. So if it isn't the right time and place this year, there's another year to come, and I think that's some of your discussion tonight is what you want to do between now and this year's town meeting, or do we need more time? And I think that's part of what's going to happen in each of those topics is, as we talk on themes, there's a range of thought on that. So I guess if we don't move it forward, or we move it forward and agree to keep talking about it and decide whether we're going to move it or not, let's just not abandon it totally. A vote to not move it tonight wouldn't mean we can't reconsider. So I'm not really here in a very unusual place to try to sway anybody. I'm kind of good with however this comes out. I just would like an organized, thoughtful, comprehensive conversation that leads to whatever the next step's going to be, whether it's in the short term or the longer term, or both.
But the administration still is in a clear position. We need it.
So let me clarify.
Yeah,
We do need the parking. Now, if you're asking me that, it's the timing and the readiness of when and how we get there. The parking's still an issue. That's not going to change, I don't think, although that's going to be part of what we talk about shortly. It's the timing and process that I'm, at this point, the committee needs to decide their readiness factor. We've been ready, I'll be honest to say, we've been ready to go for 2 years now. We were ready to go last year, and we wish it had gone through last year. So the administration isn't about whether we want parking or we wish it was done. Given that it's not, as a group, where are we and what do we want to see happen next? So.
Can we go back a slide?
Yep, that's what we need to do. So my suggestion is that we reverse the order of these and invite John to the table. Come on up, John. Which stuff? Oh, you've got visuals for us?
I just have a plan of the lot and then.
Yeah, great. So actually, John, did you want to open with some comments and big picture, or do you want to just take questions?
I'll do whatever works for you best. I mean, I can give a an overview. I know there's a few new folks.
There's 4 new folks, so I actually think maybe a few brief comments on your time last year and time so far this year, and then we'll open it up to
Yeah.
comments, and Jared will get you an easel, some of the visuals are.
He needs a microphone.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, underneath, John, flip, no, here, just swap it.
Just takes a minute.
There you go.
I am gonna ask that we really be patient tonight and listen to each other, and if you have questions that you really ask to be called on, I just would like a really structured conversation. I think we need that at this point. So John will open us up.
Just in case we want to point this out.
Just leave it.
I don't have a presentation per se. I want to come in. That's to come by Jared and Laurie.
At their request, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
open up by saying, John's here because in one of the meetings in December, you had questions for Gail, and I offered you access and said we'd bring John to a meeting.
Yeah.
So here he is.
And we are all at different points, so thank you so much for being here, because it's, I think, really helpful to get everybody up to
I'm glad to be
speed.
back. So thank you.
Great.
It's John Perry, am I correct, Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Yes.
The author of the most
Correct.
recent document, okay. And might we introduce ourselves? So thanks
Certainly.
for being here tonight.
Sure. Thank you.
Certainly. Evan, do you mind? And we'll just.
Yes. Should I start? Okay. Evan Mustafi, I'm a new member, so I'm new to the project.
Cynthia Rainey, again, a new member from Concord.
Valer, new member in both committees like
Court Booth.
Heather Bow, seen you a few times.
Wally Johnston.
David Modell, new from Carlisle.
Great. So,
And,
thanks,
and
John.
I'm John Perry. I'm with Gale Associates. I'm civil engineer and chief civil engineer, so I'm in charge of the group we have there. We completed a feasibility study about a year ago now, right? Looking at kind of everything on campus as far as exterior goes, you know, the entrance roadway, the need for parking. We looked at a few different places where the parking could go. We looked at seeing if we could fit a track out by near the skate park, an amenities concessions building with the stadium field. Probably a few things that I'm forgetting at this point, but where we ended up, I think was one of the first projects was we were going to look at was improving the entrance roadway and then doing some parking. And I'm glad to be here to answer any questions. In that feasibility report, we did have some initial kind of order of magnitude cost estimates in there, some conceptual plans. We haven't technically designed anything yet. We haven't really done the engineering to figure out all the detail around the parking lot design, but put some conceptual schematic plans together and based off of industry standard and previous experience, put cost estimates together. And we've actually updated that. It was just before, right around Thanksgiving this year, we updated that cost estimate to refine it slightly, which is where that number that was on the board earlier came from. Answer any questions that you have.
Great. So does anyone want to open
Can
up?
I ask one just off the top? On your cost estimate, did your knowledge of the site inform the cost estimate as well? Not just industry standard in your previous?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We. I guess I should recap the process a little bit too during the feasibility stage. I think it was the very first meeting that we had, and we did that. We actually sat on this table with people from zoning, planning, and conservation, NRC, DPW facilities, pretty much everyone from the town. Building inspector, I think, was here. And we, there's a challenging site, the high school site, right? There's the water protection district, there's some wetlands, and there's impervious areas that we have to contend with. So there's an AUL, which is hazardous materials being kind of buried down under the ground. There's the old parking lot that used to be there that's now covered over. So there's a lot going on in that area. So I will say that some of our numbers in the estimate probably were inflated slightly, not to a crazy degree, but slightly, just because we know that it's a little bit more of a challenging site than typical.
And we as a committee a year ago also pushed you to give us the highest possible number.
Yeah,
because we wanted to make sure that it either came in at that or lower. So I'm sure that's part of why.
And we like to try to be on the higher end with our estimates, so that you are set up for success. We'd hate to go, you can do it two ways, right? You can get bids, and then you can go to town meeting and get funding for the bid you have, or you can provide an estimate, and then go to get funding at town meeting with an estimate, and then put it out to bid, and hope that the numbers come within that budget, and if they don't, then that's a problem. So at the time, I think we were looking at doing it the latter way, which was going to get funding with an estimate. So we were looking at being a little bit on the higher, more conservative side, hoping that bids come in under that estimate, which is still, what I hope is. So.
So why don't we just go around the table, and if you've got questions, ask them, start to my left.
Right. Well, thanks for coming. So, I reviewed.
Here. The bag is done.
I don't know. I think it's. You always give the new guys the crummy microphone. So,
Those from Carlisle.
I looked through your proposal pretty carefully. I understand, what you're saying in terms of estimating height. But, from a top level, all in with all this stuff, right? It's $8,000 a parking space, which is a lot of money. So the first question really I have is, in your experience of these kind of projects, understanding the complexity of the site and all that, what's a reasonable number on a per parking space basis for a municipal parking lot?
I think that our estimate, we're pretty comfortable with it. We there's a lot of extras that are in there as well, right? There's granite curbing, there's lighting fixtures, there's electrical car, charging stations, there's power going back to the school with the trench and do conduits. There's a few different extras in there like that. We certainly know a lot of parking lots. They're typically encompassed in a larger project. It's not just a parking lot, and it's not necessarily broken out. So to get a whole bunch of different similar projects, just parking, but I don't have that specifically. But we did a project recently for the town of Linfield where it was 100 parking spaces. It wasn't a school; it was a municipal project at one of their parks. It was 100 parking spaces. It included a couple of extras. They wanted to redo part of they had a playing field next to it. They were just doing some improvements to that. There was a retaining wall, but it was mostly parking was the project, and there was some of the parking spaces were actually gravel rather than asphalt. And the average bid came in at the average. We got like 10 bids. The average was $980,000. That was the bid without contingency. So looking at it with contingency, with 10% contingency, it's like $1.1 million. So I think if you back out those, like the field improvements I mentioned, the retaining wall, things that you don't have, they also only had like 2 parking lights. They didn't have any car charging stations, things like this. So using that as kind of the sniff test as they call it, I think we're in the ballpark. I don't think that we're being too conservative.
And typically, what's the multiplier that one might expect and I assume maybe you don't, but you do private sector projects as well as public sector. So what kind of factor, because it's municipal, it has all those codes and all that, what's the factor that one should?
Because you have to pay prevailing wages here, obviously. The typical number is 30%.
Okay.
More.
So if we were a company, the same parking lot might be $600,000.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, and of course that our estimate for the actual bid is $670,000.
Right.
And
so there are these other things one question, and it might be a Jared question. I posed it last time. Optics. The price per parking lot, big number. If we could cut it down, we would want to. Are there any statutory reasons the school could not say, we'll absorb the risk of contingency, we'll self-fund overruns?
No. There isn't, if it goes over, we would have to cover the cost anyway.
Right.
But having a built-in contingency the known rather than the unknown. If we were going to take on the unknown contingency without, say, a design, that might be something that.
Well, you're gonna be doing it anyway, because you're gonna go to a bid, I mean, if it goes to town meeting, you're gonna request this number without a design, because we told you, don't get a design. And the people with experience at Gale say 100 grand is a contingency, 15%. Okay. You were gonna spend 84, 85 anyway, so if you can sign up for 100, strip the contingency, and there you are at, 669, right, or whatever, plus profit. So, anyway, I mean, I was just making that point. I guess it's more on
Legal.
your side than for Mr. Perry. So typically, you have overhead and profit insurance. You have a bunch of things sort of lumped together, but typically I would presume, I mean, so you have these individual things. I imagine those are the costs. Those are actual direct costs like topsoil or gravel, and then you add your factor, or are these vendors who already have that built in and then there's something on top of it?
These line items here for, like, say, topsoil, stripping topsoil. That we get that number from the Mass DOT. They have a weighted bid averages website. We can go on
Right, so those are bids from people who have their own profit and overhead built into that number.
Right.
So the one that's on top of it is whose?
So the first one here is like
Yeah.
bonds, insurance, contractor overhead, profit. So that's your, they have to pay for their bonding company. They need to get a payment performance bond. That costs them something. Insurance and all that good stuff, right? That they need. They have their overhead with their office support, their project management, coming to meetings.
So that's for the GC?
So that's
For
the
the
GC.
program manager.
Yep, exactly. So we usually put in a number up there, say 15% of the total.
Direct cost.
Correct.
Okay.
As a kind of a catch-all for that type of stuff.
And I guess, again, I'm not sure if it's a Jared question or a Gail question, but could you self-insure? Could you go to the town for insurance and bonding and strip that out of the project?
No, that's something that
No.
needs to come from the contractor.
Cannot.
They have to present bonds
Okay.
in every bid.
Correct.
Okay, I think I'll defer. I have other questions about the rest of the proposal, but for the cost side, I'm happy. I'll defer to the rest. Thank you.
Heather?
Just one, just one question. In terms of kind of big picture and escalation, we looked at this a year ago, we're looking at it again now. Though several of us have been looking at middle school construction costs and know that at least in school construction, costs are increasing at 6 to 7% a year, if not more these days. What would be your estimate of general year-over-year cost escalation? Basically, in case we decide not to do it this year, but to look at it again next year, what does that mean to us in terms of increased cost, potentially? Obviously, you don't have a hard answer, so
Yeah, I don't have
whatever
a hard
your
answer, and
estimate.
I'm not a professional cost estimator, but I think it's a little bit different with like the site work as opposed to building work.
Okay,
I think those materials, in my experience, tend to stay a little more steady
okay, good.
than building materials. Somewhere around 5% year over year.
Okay, that's still,
Is typically when we talk to contractors, that's kind of the answer that we tend to get. We haven't seen any huge jumps coming out of the recession from around the 2012,
right.
2013, where everything started getting a lot better. One year we did see kind of a big jump. A lot of our estimates were we were using numbers with a little bit of an escalation factor from the years before. We had a bunch of bids come in that were 5-10%
Significant.
over our estimates. What's going on here? And we kind of made some adjustments, and we've been rock solid ever since that, the last 5-6 years. So.
Okay, great, that's really helpful.
Can I
Thank you.
follow up just on this? Sorry, may I follow
You
up
can
just
follow
on
up
this?
on my question.
Yeah, just on this. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had this discussion before. I actually said, I think that especially in paving, it's linked to the price of crude oil rather than it can actually fluctuate not according to a recession.
This one up 30%.
Actually, those fluctuations are very, very big of crude oil. It's unpredictable, and it's nothing that we can actually.
Yeah, that's one item in there that you'd be correct.
Okay.
Court?
One of the agreements that I think is very deeply held around this table is that this is a problem that we have to solve at some point. If we could do this over again, I ask myself hypothetically, what would a rigorous study of current policies and practices around management at that facility and its parking and its traffic do to inform a company like Gale and a team like yours before your work started? What constitutes best practice around squeezing out efficiencies before this kind of solution comes to bear? Care to speak to it?
Parking efficiencies you're asking about?
Exactly. We're looking at a pavement solution, but it's one of many solutions. And I'm curious what constitutes best practice effort at efficiencies around what you have before you lay down new pavement. How would this committee know we've done our diligence there first?
Well, I don't know if this is going to answer your question or not, but typically when we're involved with parking studies at schools, typically the main issues we see are traffic flow, drop-offs and things like that, temporary happenings, and then parking during large events like Thanksgiving Day football game and graduation, things like that, and you have to implement a parking management plan. To do that, part of police details and overflow parking, et cetera, but where you have a set amount of parking spaces and you have the same amount of students parking there every single day, I don't know what other efficiencies, if all the parking spaces are filled up and you've got local zoning code obviously that calls for each parking space needs to be a certain size. If they're all filled up all day, every single day, then typically the solution I would think would be additional parking. I don't know if that answers your question again.
It's helpful. It's helpful.
Can I just ask, were you sort of getting at what some of the parking mitigation schemes might be?
Yes, and let's use the hotel analogy. What would be a desirable occupancy rate for circulation around there? If we have X number of spots, should 90% of them be filled all the time? Would that constitute high efficiency? I don't know.
And I think one of the things you might be
associates.
I don't think it's within your purview, but that's why I ask, have you seen best practices that preceded or accompanied your work on these kinds of solutions?
Nothing that would really dictate any sort of percentage of spaces being filled.
I just use that as an example of an efficiency measure that people might use in the industry. I don't know.
So maybe a different way to ask that would be, in your work with other schools in parking lots, have you come across schemes they use to limit the number of cars coming to campus versus adding parking?
I think it seems that every school is different with their parking.
Privileges.
Privileges, thank you. Yeah, if it's only seniors or if it's only juniors or if it's everyone, and I haven't seen any sort of. It seems like every school is a little bit different, honestly. I think one way to do it would probably be to limit just seniors or something like that, but then there'd probably be mutiny on your hands with everyone else. So.
Gee, that might be how we got here.
I wonder what that would look like.
That's how it was in my when I was in high school.
Right.
20 years ago, was if you had a license, you could drive to school, and there wasn't any sort of.
That's exactly where we're at. Is that?
And if it was any different than that, then there would have been an upheaval.
Right.
All of a sudden there'd be a run of pitchforks.
Right.
Exactly.
Yvonne?
So part of what I'll ask you things, but I'll take advantage to speak to the committee. I think that we have two things to play with when we come to town meeting. There is the number, which is cost and reasonable cost for the project, and the other thing is the political question, sustainability and stuff, which are non-related. But we have to actually find the two together. So with you, I'll speak only about the cost, but I have a few questions with the cost. I have a little problem with the numbers here and with the warrant article, and I want your input on this. At the end of the day, we're doing something very public. And the minute we publish this number, $850,000 as a warrant article, it might actually push the bids up because each one of the companies that is bidding knows precisely what we have as budget for this. I'm afraid of this contingency. I prefer to find a way to actually, as a warrant article, to be still safe, but to have the public number lower. In your cost estimate, there's one number I want to ask whether in your professional experience you can actually play with the granite curb. The $40,000. Are there other solutions that are not as expensive? It's a big item.
Yeah, we could use like a Cape Cod berm or a concrete curb. I don't like concrete curb because they tend to get chipped and deteriorate. So I typically go with a granite or a like a bituminous berm, or not even having curb. You can have parking islands cut out and any curb. There's certainly things in here I think that we could probably value engineer out. I mean, we don't need quite as many light fixtures once we do our photometrics plan. Maybe we don't need 9, maybe we need 10 or 8, or maybe we can strip down the landscaping a little bit. So there's some things in here that I think we can probably.
Yeah, but that's why I tackled only this one, because this looks to me as the. We're not going to actually change the bituminous pavement but the granite, which is $40,000. I want to understand whether it's feasible to do it without it, but still getting the right solution.
Yeah, I think it is feasible.
Any other items here that you think that we can do without and still get a decent solution? I don't want
put in
to
the timber guardrail.
Save money and get a solution that will cost us more in maintenance.
Like the timber guardrail we put in, we figured, let's put a guardrail around the whole perimeter because, we're just looking at this going, well, kids are going to be kids. We don't want them driving over the grass or, we want to kind of funnel them where they go.
Right.
Adults.
Town meeting time.
It's a barrier,
But do we have it on the current parking lot?
Look at others.
Do we do?
Yes.
Unless you want to drive through that swale.
Yeah, I know.
There's one, you would have to damage your car in the timber to drive through the swale.
Yeah.
And also to get onto the,
But otherwise, people kind of go where they go.
Anything else?
We have a pretty big number in there for drainage. We have $100,000, just lump sum number in there for drainage. We don't really know what drainage is going to be.
That's
at this
that's
point.
a big question mark.
Because that's such a big question mark on our campus.
Right.
Okay, so we can go there. Now I want to go to your proposal, please. And in your proposal, I want to ask you questions about, in page 8, you put a list of, I think, 21 contingencies. Gale fees does not include. And so there are two parts to this. There are all kind of things there that, of course, we don't have habitat study or mitigation design. We don't have really a way to evaluate either whether the chance that we need it, B, not only what would be your fees to do it, but at the end of the day, look at this list and tell us, is it just because you have to put in the contract, or you, after you did the study, is there a good chance that we will fall into one of these categories and it will be a big line item on our?
No, if there was a good chance, or we thought there was a chance we would need to do something, we would have put it in the base fee. Some of these are very boilerplate, things like wetland delineations. Really, I don't believe there are wetlands, in the vicinity. Habitat stuff, that's like endangered species, which I remember. I don't think that we were in an endangered species zone at all on the house. So some of these are boilerplate. Architectural or structural design services wouldn't, they wouldn't come into play with the parking lot anyhow. So
So this is kind of a template.
Typically, these don't. We're not putting these in there to try to get them later. You know what I mean? We're not putting them in there to try to say, "Oh no, it wasn't included, so we need it."
No, of course, nobody actually suspects you do. I am actually asking because they're there. I mean, I wouldn't have seen it, I wouldn't have known they exist. But because you put them there, I want to
Sure.
know
Yeah.
when I go to town meeting, if we will be asked, yes, but what are the chances that we'll need a big line item
Right.
on mitigating? So you think, according to your experience in this specific place, that this is not a real risk?
Right. This is. I think that the things that we've excluded, we have pretty good confidence that we're not going to need to do those things. We just want to make it clear that that's.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? So I completely understand that, you know, it's a CYA sort of thing and it relates to your bid quote, your quotation for the design process. But it leads to a larger risk. You indicate things that, while possibly, you know, small in probability, could be big in cost. Bid protest, not bid protest, but bid protest. Then you have, you know, legal fee. Beyond the fact that maybe your fee doesn't cover it, you got lawyers' fees or wetland delineation, I mean, you know, environmental effects. So, and I don't know that you could provide an answer, but some of these things, if they did happen, while they might have a minor effect on the design cost, could be very costly, even to the point where you might have to abandon the project. Are there any of these things, knowing your knowledge of the site, that rise above, you know, not meaningful percentage of probability?
No. Anything that we think, you know, could come up, and of course, again, we haven't really designed yet. Anything we think could arise, we try to put in the cost estimate. In the exclusions in our proposal, or again, they're pretty boilerplate.
That's very helpful, because that's something that we bounced around here for
Yeah,
a while.
because at the end of the day, we have to take some responsibility.
Sure.
Because it's there. It wouldn't have been there. We wouldn't have
Yeah,
done all the geothermal study. You know,
typically we
is it 5,000 or 500,000?
Like in this case, typically we would do a geotechnical study for a parking lot, but there's already so many borings done out there with the AUL closure.
We have a lot of information on this campus.
Yeah, so we actually have
all the information from the building.
We have
Right,
an item
that's
in our proposal to do some test pits or borings, but we're not doing a full like geotechnical engineering evaluation. So that's kind of what that means.
This particular area was heavily monitored because
There's no
when we
question.
did that, when we
And
collected.
my last question about your compensation, please, in the contract. You have phase 1 to 6 different phases in your compensation. And I just want to be clear that the way it works is that, you know, for instance, if we do a bid and we decide not to continue, so the construction phase services are not being charged. It just goes according to as we proceed.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I just want to remind us that unless somebody on the committee proposes that we bring it back, this proposal is not under consideration.
No,
We voted not to do this ahead of time.
Understood.
no, but it's part of the total 848.
If we should-
78,000 is part of that number. So
If they
it
should win,
actually,
if they win the bid.
yeah, it goes.
Cynthia?
All of my questions have been answered.
All right, we're good.
Eva?
So I just had a question. Once you go through the design process, would we have a clear understanding of any pitfalls that come up working with the town of Concord and their committees? Is that all?
I don't know if John can answer that question fairly.
Well, no, yeah.
Short answer is no.
Yeah. We're gonna go through the permitting process,
And that's when it's all of it?
and once we get all permitted, then
Yeah.
we'll be all set to start construction.
So when everything will be already done and we have a parking lot, then we'll be able to say that we finished. Okay.
Well, to Lori's point, in that rough timeline, there's design and then there's permitting, and the permitting is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have to
I think
get
the
through
good
that
news is
process.
John's already spent time with the directors of those departments and the who work with those committees, and there's a little bit of lead time already started, but the answer is no.
Right.
I just want to clarify one thing. So the bidding for this, we do not actually have to bid out the design.
Right.
So we would obviously bid out all of the construction costs. So just
So
want
we
to
can just
clarify
choose
that.
someone and award the design
Correct.
and then go out to bid for the
Yeah,
construction.
like we don't even consider,
We're just trying to be sure we're all exactly clear.
yeah, no,
Sure,
totally,
sure,
but I don't think that
Clarity.
it ever came as even a suggestion that we consider not working with people, so. Just to tell you, that it's not,
Exactly.
it's not actually, it was never actually even brought up, so you're here not wasting your time.
David, you had mentioned you might have some more questions.
No, actually, they've been answered, thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else have?
Just one very minor one perhaps. Speak to peer reviewers. These are external consultants for other agencies. Is that?
Correct. Where's that reference?
Page
Sorry.
7, third bullet. Can't imagine Concord will be satisfied with one round of comments of any kind.
Well, that's one of our standard kind of limitations there as well. You know, if we worked with a town not too long ago, and each committee we went through had a different peer review engineer. So we had to satisfy like 2 or 3 different peer review engineering firms.
So not just the authority, but also their companion
Yep.
firm.
And then they had the town engineer actually did a peer review, and then he retired and had someone else come in, and he did his own. So we did like 6 different peer reviews, and there was nothing saying that we didn't have to do that. So we kind of put that in there. And
So we're limited to 4.
So
we don't pretend to nickel and dime with the nuances too much, but it's kind of a.
you just don't want to be dragged off
Yeah.
forever down that road.
Makes sense, thank you.
Thank you for coming and thank you for having put
Yes,
this
thank you very
original
much.
proposal together. You've been a great partner to us
Thank you for having me
over the
back.
years, and I assume you will partner with us again in the future.
Yeah.
We hope.
We're excited for when this goes forward, and
Okay.
we'll be waiting.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
May I suggest
Thanks, John.
that we'll ask Mr. Perry to stay another few minutes while we discuss? So
Okay.
if questions will come up during the discussion,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You can
I
stay right there.
appreciate it.
Do you really need a few?
Yeah.
Do you think there will be?
So do you want to start up at sustainability now? Yeah.
So I think our next topic really needs to be the sustainable part. We've bounced around a lot of different pieces of this. One of the things I'm not sure of, and I think the first question the committee has to grapple with is, where are we in this conversation? Are we at a meeting tonight trying to come up with ideas that address how we try to be more sustainable? Are we at a place where we're trying to agree we're committed to that and we need a structure to that? I have a recommendation I'd like to offer first. I think there's a lot of good ideas at this table that I've heard a good amount about, and I think those need a place in the subcommittee where they get charged for process and vetting and commitment to come back to this committee and say, yes, we're going to try that. I think we need to just be thoughtful about pace of what we might try. There are some really good ideas here and some out-of-the-box thinking that we haven't had. So I guess my question is, what's your purpose here tonight? Are you at a table trying to brainstorm like what we're going to go do next? And I'm going to leave here with what that direction is and go work with the high school to try things to be sustainable? Or are we at a planning mode to try to plan what we're going to do next and then develop what that plan looks like and execute, say, for the fall? I think that's your first order of business, because having heard different things, I think we're in different places on that. So that would be the first question I'd ask you to comment on. In that, you might suggest what your idea is, if you've got an idea to consider. It's just, I'm concerned about, I'm not sure what timing we're on for it all, and whether we're at a planning stage or an execution stage.
I would vote.
I would like it to ask you to really,
Let me
It's a process something.
Let me speak to this.
yeah, we gotta do one at a time,
It's not
we
about
really
this.
do,
Look,
we
what
really
it's not
do.
about this, it's about him staying. Just one second, give me a second. We punishing him because that's gonna be a long discussion. I want to explain why I've asked him to stay for a second, and then if it's not there, because that's going to be a long discussion. We don't need Mr. Perry to sit here now for the next hour. That's why I've asked him to stay because I'm going to try. I don't know if it's even feasible legally because we already have a warrant article. I just don't know the procedure. But I want to try and convince the committee later on that we should lower this number by the total of the contingency. So we should come with a warrant article at $100,000 less.
Well, I don't think we could do that tonight.
And that's the question, because that's the only reason why I've asked him
Yeah,
to
I
stay.
don't know that, I don't feel like we need John for that. I think you've got a lot of information to work with as to what that would,
Okay, so that's why I've asked him to stay, so if
Right.
everybody agrees, I think we can release.
so to me, that's gonna fall under town meeting process and all that goes with
Okay.
process, protocol,
We can always, we
politics.
don't want to decrease.
So
it.
that was the reason why I've asked him.
Okay, so John, I think we're gonna let you go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome to stay, of
Thank you,
course.
John.
If we have other questions, we'll gather them and
Okay.
Jared will get
Yeah.
them to you. Thank you.
If you do talk about that, I think there's a little wiggle room.
Sure. We hear that.
Somewhere, so
Yeah, we heard that. Thank you.
that's all.
Yeah, I know you've been really helpful.
Thank you for being
Thanks.
touch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
that's great. Thank you so much, John.
All right, so I'm gonna
So
loop you
you-
back to what I think is the first round of discussion as to where you are in the sustainability piece. So I'm gonna ask you to talk on that before you get into other things. Are you at a planning discussion tonight? Are you at we're gonna sit here and make the plan and tell the administrators what to execute? So if we could just start with that, I think that's gonna drive the rest of the information. It doesn't mean I don't think you should share the good ideas you have, it just means I think we need to figure out what our purpose is.
So what I would like to do is, one thing we have to do tonight is decide whether or not we're going to move the article, because the warrant closes on Friday, and that's a hard date. So I think the things that relate to people's ability to make that decision are important to talk about tonight. A couple of things have been discussed, or a couple of people have mentioned things to me that I will mention now. But one of them Laura's already mentioned, which is the subcommittee idea, which we could commit to do. And a lot of what we might talk about tonight around sustainability and traffic would likely end up in that space rather than here tonight. There was a proposal to hold a meeting subsequent to this that would just be to come in and talk about these things. Whether they are specifically parking sustainability or they are parking and other sustainabilities we might undertake at the region and or the Concord district. And invite the public to come to that. We would have a conversation among ourselves on those topics. And then we would open the floor to people to give us ideas or comments or feedback on what we're doing and what we might do. So those are sort of two things. And that, I think if we went down the subcommittee road, it might be the subcommittee that held that meeting rather than the full committee here. But the notion of that was that there would be a meeting of a quorum of whatever subcommittee or committee to talk about this stuff and nothing else, which would only require that we have those conversations tonight to the degree they help you decide whether or not to vote to move the article forward to the warrant. As Lori said, that doesn't make us move the article at town meeting. And so I think, or things that you would absolutely need to see in the parking bid, which if this is the case, probably precludes us from being able to do this because we wouldn't get numbers in time. But something you absolutely needed to see in the parking design of a sustainability nature, if you were going to vote for it or not. You might want to bring that up now. So, having thought somewhat about this before we got here, I would look at it that way. We have other things to do tonight. Not a lot, but I don't know that tonight is necessary to launch into a big sustainability discussion as much as it is to talk about how are we going to have that discussion. Because there are a couple of different things on the table.
Because it,
That was my assumption of what we were doing. We asked the Carlisle members to come tonight for a brief edition of joint discussion, and my understanding was exactly that we would decide whether or not to at least move this forward to the warrant to give us the option of moving it, and then in the meantime, we plan what our process is going to be to get to that final decision. So I'm all for that
I'm
brief
gonna ask
process.
that we do what we did previously
Yeah.
and go around the table. So we'll start with Ava. Comments on this, where we are right now in this.
Well, it's too bad that we don't have our high school students here to voice their suggestions around what they feel, the parking situation is and what they're thinking about sustainability, because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of talk about, being green and being responsible, especially around our young students. So it's too bad that we don't have them present. I feel that this can be moved forward, and the residents can decide whether whether we have the funds to, and this is a priority for us right now, to pay for parking, for additional parking, because the need has been there before today, before this year. This keeps coming up, so it's just a matter, do we take it up now, or do we keep pushing that can kicking that can down the road? This is where I stand on this. And I did want to add that when it comes to busing, the buses do not, just so people understand, because it was news to me, that students are not allowed to take very big bags onto the buses, so that really requires that parents do driving. They do have to bring those, you are getting a lot more people going out there shipping those huge bags, whether it's for hockey or you're actually driving your own students, or students are driving each other to the hockey rink. So there's definitely a need for additional parking. And driving around the parking lot, sometimes coming to visit the school, there's never a single parking spot left. It's hard to find a parking in a visitor area by the high school. Definitely there is nothing in the student parking lot open at any point, and I'm a frequent flyer. Thank you.
Cynthia.
I appreciate the opportunity to have this sustainability discussion, but I don't think, I'm not even prepared to have that discussion tonight. I have ideas, and I think many members of our community have ideas. And as I stated last week, our last meeting in December, feels like last week.
Last year.
I know.
Complaining about it.
That I just think we should take a time out and pursue those activities and not move the article this year. I understand we could decide not to move it, but I will not vote to put it on the warrant. And I appreciate the concept of not moving it, but still it's a heavy lift to have the discussions to decide not to move it, and probably wouldn't make that decision until it came very close to town meeting. So with that said, again, I appreciate the thoughtfulness that the superintendent has gone through to have this discussion tonight, so.
I think that we all have been here, or most of us, 6 of us have been here last meeting, and we know that this is, I totally believe we need parking. But at the same time, I totally, I know that the town of Concord told us no previous time. Now, it's not so simple, because they told us no, a much more complex and much more expensive project. But at the end of the day, we said no. I believe that the only way that I'll feel comfortable to clearly vote that we should do it is if we will be clear to come to the table with something more than we did last year. And it has to tackle the sustainability question. my problem of, it's okay, I think that we should have a few ideas thrown today for us to think, maybe not, but my problem with the promise of voting today and in the future discussing it is that, first, I'm not too sure that we'll get the vote today, if we do it that way. And I want to get the vote. And the other thing is, I'm afraid of burying questions in committees. So if we do it that way, I think that before we vote, we have to be clear about timetable, which means when are we going to have the next meeting about it, whether it's subcommittee, whether it's a committee, open. You know, it's different if we leave here and say, we will have a discussion, and it's different if we're saying, next Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning we have a discussion. I will feel much more comfortable to actually vote, and I think that we might convince some other members here to vote about it if we know the timetable is not what Cynthia said, that it will go all the way just before town meeting, but that we'll have a chance to stop. The people that do not believe in this will have a chance to still have a second vote about it in a determined time from now. I think that this might convince, I would feel more comfortable to vote for it, and it might convince some of my colleagues that are sitting on the fence to vote for it, knowing that it's not just we will do it, but we're doing it next week.
Thank you. Clark?
I'm not ready to support it right now at this moment in time, but I'm still listening. We have a parking problem that we have to solve. I don't think that's debatable, but there's many hows that have to be debated. And the very fact that there's reference to creative solutions coming from school committee members in January says that, gosh, we've still got a lot of work to be done, because we should be doing more than trying to solve this ourselves with our creativity. We should be weighing all kinds of solutions that are underway at the high school to see if we can make this problem a little bit more manageable. And if things have been happening up there, how informed is the community about those efforts that would then legitimize a big ask? I like the idea of advocating and selling. I don't like the idea of defending positions that suggest that we haven't done our thorough diligence. And if we have, it's not known enough to me or to, I think, the public at large to do a proper sell at town meeting. I think we need to bring something forward and have a win in Carlisle and have a win in Concord. And I'm not of a mind that we can risk year 2 and then go after year 3. Back to my first point, if we're looking at ideas coming from this committee, and that's our mitigation solution, I don't think that's enough. We've got to do more than that before we're ready.
Okay, so there's a bunch that I agree with each of you, actually. For efficiency, I think first we're all pretty much in agreement that we have an issue that we need to address. The question is how. My tendency so far, as you all know, has been to move it this year and to get it done. My take right now in terms of tonight is not necessarily that we absolutely should move forward with it at town meeting, but that we should put it on the warrant article tonight as a placeholder to then have that discussion and really decide. I agree completely with both Cynthia and Yuval that discussion should not drag on until the last minute at town meeting, but should happen efficiently. I agree with Lori that the best way to do that is a subcommittee. I don't think it's getting hidden in subcommittee. I think if we as this committee are going to tackle all the things that we need to work efficiently, and subcommittees are an efficient way to do that. I'd be fine with setting a meeting so that we're on track and doing it efficiently. I think there are great ideas to discuss, and like you said, tonight is not the day to hash them all out and figure out what exactly we're doing. We're not tasking the administration tonight with certain tasks, but it's important that we set a plan for that to happen. So I believe that we should vote to put it on the warrant article tonight and set a plan for a subcommittee to look at sustainability ideas in the meantime, and quickly and efficiently get to that decision so that it doesn't drag out.
Okay, good. It's been a good discussion, and kind of like with the school trips, I wouldn't have thought this through. You know, when I first would think about it, I would move to the practical and let's get it done, you know. But I like this committee because it does challenge us, and I believe that we are elected to lead. So I disagree with Eva and Heather only on the point that we turn it over to the town. The town elected us to lead. We need to lead. So, you know, those of you who are familiar maybe with California politics, the legislature abandons all kinds of things and puts them to, what do they call those things?
Proposition.
Yeah, you know,
Proposition.
that's quite frankly BS in my mind. They should be leaders, right? They should decide what to do. So
What is BS?
you can look it up. Actually, Erin puts all these acronyms at the end of the minutes. She can add that one. So,
I'm not an English speaker, you know.
yeah, okay, we get it.
Bologna sandwich.
Anyway, I've lost my train of thought now. I believe that we should not move it unless there was strong will, which I'm not sensing, in the committee to move it at this point. I absolutely agree with Dr. Hunter's suggestion to create a sustainable focus, whether it's a subcommittee or whatever. And I think that, you know, this issue has highlighted what we need to do. I love it what Eva said about, you know, engage the students on they're part of the problem and part of the solution. You know, I like what you mentioned about the school bags. I mean, we should be doing everything to facilitate taking the bus. Mm-hmm. And if we have to do that, I mean, you own your own buses, right? I mean, it shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. So those are the kind of things I agree with Court. You know, we should be looking for best practice all over the place, right? Everybody's confronting this. I just simply, you know, I said it a couple meetings ago, I just don't believe laying down more concrete is the first thing we should do. And so I love that this has opened up a richer dialogue. I think we'll be in a better place if we take the lead on it. I like playing the long game, just like with the trips. I don't think we got to solve the 2020 problem. You know, we do it with an eye towards building the future, you know, laying some groundwork. And as in previous discussions, there's going to be different committee members over the next few years, but if we set a tone, they inherit the tone. So for all those reasons, you know, I think we should take this as an opportunity and not rush to vote a project that we're not crazy about, that has its own issues anyway, and really embrace this as a good initiative for this committee and for leadership in the district and in both towns. So thank you.
I think we should put it in the warrant, and I think we should move it. And I agree with much of what's been said. The problem has been said before. I mean, we've been dealing with this issue for 3 years. We've worked on finding solutions for the parking problem. The parking problem didn't start last year. It has been going on, and we have been looking for solutions. And we don't, to date, have any. I don't, and with all deference, I don't think we're going to come up with any solutions that are going to deal with the problem of getting the cars that are off campus, on campus. They're already coming to school. We're not saving any. If anything, we are saving carbon emissions because we're not taking 2 trips. But we've got kids who are parking off the campus. I think we should get them on the campus. We know from the get-go that we didn't build enough parking, but we couldn't because we had a building in the way and we had a site that we knew we were going to have to remediate. So we did come with a leading foot last year and did a lot of outreach to the community on the parking. And I think we had a unanimous vote to move it. I'm not sure where court was on it, but I think, and then I will add, as I've said numerous times, the way town meeting worked out last year, rather than vote on school articles on Monday night, we didn't get in Monday night. we had hoped to get in Tuesday night. There was a long discussion on a special portion of town meeting that took precedence. So we didn't vote until Wednesday night. And whatever you feel about people coming to town meeting every night or not, this would have passed. It had been on Monday night. It lost by 12 votes. I couldn't be there because I had to take our daughter somewhere on Wednesday night. So that would have been one vote. We would have had another 300-400 people in the room, most likely. I think it's time to put this piece of this to bed and put a parking lot there. I think we can do all the things we're talking about doing. If we're going to address the parking, you will be back at this point sometime in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes to get to where we were last year. I absolutely think we should agree tonight to I think a subcommittee is a good way to do it. It would be open meetings. It would be a quorum necessary. It would probably be 3 or 4 people, but whatever it is, it would be an open meeting. And I would have that group hold a public meeting to get ideas about sustainability in the way we handle vehicle traffic at the campus and sustainability ideas about the things we do around the campus, period. I mean, we do have a sustainability committee. It's been doing a lot of work. I think one of the things that subcommittee could do would be highlight what those are. Start with those, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And move forward. If there are things to try, absolutely, give them a try. But give them a good airing out first as to whether or not they're feasible, and take them to the constituency at the high school who would be living under whatever that is, and see that it would work. This is, other than that big piece of property that we have, and at some point in time in the future, we may decide what to do with it. Do something other than a grass field, and certain things to be said for a grass field. This ultimately, in my mind, completes the construction project of the high school. I understand the desire to lower the dollar amount of the warrant article, and optics are important. This community sees a lot of warrant articles. For capital projects, there's almost always a contingency in that. I think the community is more comfortable with a conservative estimate, meaning on the high side, and a contingency, knowing full well that we will do everything we can do to get the best bid and to get the project done in the most efficient way, and that whatever money isn't used will be, if it for some reason has come into the regional coffers, which is probably unlikely, it would go back to the community. It wouldn't be spent, it wouldn't be in our budget. If it cost $600,000 to get the project done, then $250,000 would go back into the kitty. I think, I suspect if we didn't have a contingency and we moved this, that there would be people stand up and say, why is there no contingency? What if something happens? You can't take it out of the school budget because you've zero-based budgeted the school process and the school budget, and barring some unforeseen windfall, there wouldn't be money there to take it out of the school budget. So I don't think the difference here is $100,000 or $150,000 in the amount of the warrant article. I think the difference is what's the need versus we have a very strong environmental presence in the community. I'm part of it. that'll be what the conversation's about on town meeting floor. It's not gonna be about whether it's 650 or 850. So that's my 2 cents. 3, that's probably $1. Right? Why don't we just go around again, and if anybody has,
I just wanted to add that there's nothing stopping us to continue with the sustainability and talks and engaging the students plus running with moving forward with the parking, because the problem unfortunately is not going to go away. Anywhere you cut it, there's just no spaces, and there's more students that need those spaces. So then the problem is not going to change. You can still educate and you can still get the kids involved to do better in sharing rides and other solutions that might be coming up, but it doesn't say that we cannot do both.
Well, to that point, last time Dr. Hunter told us about having had conversations with students from the Sunshine Movement who said, yes, we fully believe we need parking and we would like to keep working on the sustainability, right? And said that they would be happy to stand up and share that.
So we'll stay on track around the table.
Cynthia.
I have nothing more.
And I have more. I'm not going to, at this stage, Wally, with your permission, I'm not going to go to speak about the numbers of the article, because I think it's premature. At this stage, we're not sure that we have the vote for mainly to David, I disagree, I seriously disagree with the idea that this should wait, and it's the same like the trips or something. I want to take a step back and remind all of us why we're here. We're here because the superintendent and the administration for years comes and tells us it's a question of students' well-being. It's not the trips, I'm very involved in the trips. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not the trips.
the trips.
There's something about international trips you haven't.
Junior's driving is well-being and international travel's not.
Okay, I'm not letting you go to the trips tonight. I'm sorry.
Thank
So
you.
careful, Mr.
You've all asked
You should
before.
be serious. You're coming
Yeah.
with jokes.
Let you all speak.
All right. So no, I actually think it's not. It should not wait. I don't think that we should postpone it. We should take a decision. And it's a question of well-being. And this committee invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in the whole idea of starting the high school half an hour later, because and what we're doing is the kids coming and getting up even earlier, to find parking. So I believe that this committee, now the question of whether we can come with a solution, whether these 2 months that we have is enough, if we'll decide it's enough, it will be enough. We will move our behinds and we will make it enough. And we'll come before town meeting with a solution here that will be able to bring sustainability into the discussion. But before we vote about it today, I called the chairs to actually, I think that the next thing we should discuss before the vote is subcommittee versus committee.
I agree.
And then have it take agendas and here decide when it's happening before we vote. Because I don't think that the whole idea of postponing decisions and actually having another year to discuss, we'll have another year to discuss it, nothing will happen. Like it didn't happen in the last year that brings it to now.
Yeah.
And we can blame the administration and we can blame ourselves, the school committee, but the nature of things, because we're all busy, because there's so many fires to put off, is that when we say we will do, we don't do it. So by actually voting it today and putting a clear time frame, that will make us do it, make or break. We will not come with a solution, we cannot move on with the discussion. But we have to today decide that we're going on, because it's not a question of, it's a question of well-being. If we believe the administration, people in this meeting shout at me all the time that we have to actually trust the administration when they come with us with they come with us with a very clear message. and we have to respect it. But we have to work hard in order to be able to come to town meeting with a solution. I have a disagreement with Wally about the question, yeah, I totally agree with you. If it would have happened in the first evening, we probably would have gotten the vote. But it doesn't matter, we didn't. So we work within the premises that we have to come to town meeting with a different thing, with something more innovative, with something new. And we have to work on it, and we have to work on it in the next 2 months to be clear that we move on with something tangible. Now, for a second about the question of subcommittee or committee. Usually...
Can I just interrupt?
Yes, of course.
Because I'm a process person. We didn't have anything on our agenda talking about subcommittee, talking about a charge for a committee. I had no idea this was an option. So I don't really think it's appropriate for us to have the discussion, to talk about, to appoint a committee, to set up committee, without putting it on our next agenda to have the conversation. I understand that it could possibly influence the vote, but I don't think that's appropriate to proceed like this. So I think we have on our agenda tonight to vote about the town meeting warrant article. We have the information that's been out prior to this, which is quite appropriate, a proposal, the numbers, etc. But that's the information the public has, that's the information I have, and I think that to try to back into doing something different without making this information available to the public before tonight is not appropriate.
So I do think there's a middle ground there. You earlier tonight decided you were going to add a meeting next week.
Mhm.
So I think you could agree tonight to put that on your agenda next week and do what you just said. Form a subcommittee, set the schedule, make the plans,
So-
and then you'd have notice.
Right.
Yeah, and then it's on that agenda.
Honestly, I'm not too sure that I agree with Cynthia about the process, because what we are discussing now is just a way to do it, and at the end of the day,
If we're going to take a vote, it should be on this agenda.
No, we don't have to take it. We have to take a vote, no, but it's okay. We don't have to take a vote of it, but we can continue the discussion. I want to, at this stage, we have a job, I think I have a job to try and convince 3 members here that are clearly not clear about the decision to vote with us tonight about the warrant article. And part of it will be if we will all, including me, will be sure that it is not something that will be kind of in the air, but it's tangible, it will happen next week. And I want to speak about the question of subcommittee and committee, because that's the only chance we'll have before next week to speak about it, not to vote about it. And it's part of this discussion. I'm somebody that thinks that the fewer people that are doing something, the faster and better it's being done. I think that this might be, and I'm not against subcommittee, I think that this might be the exception here. Because at the end of the day, we're extremely limited with time. Subcommittee will have to go to the committee. It will not, and then we'll have the discussion in the committee. So subcommittee will have to discuss, bring it to the committee. With 7 people, all of us extremely involved in the question of sustainability. I think this is the exception. I think that we can schedule for next week. We have an executive session, and then later on, a meeting only about this. Here, with the 7 people, open it to the public. I actually think that having a subcommittee on this will make it more cumbersome, but I'm open to both. I'm not saying, I think that in this case, it will be faster, it will be more streamlined to do it that way. And I don't know if David will agree that if we have it clearly as something tangible, and we all understand that we will have it in 2 months' time on the agenda to make or break, which means we have a second chance. We put ourselves into a clear timetable with this question, and you'll have a second time, all of you, even if you voted yes today, we'll have a second chance not to move on it. And I think this should be the middle ground to convince you to do it, because I really think it's wrong to try once again throw it to, and we had other discussions here, and I think that I showed that things that are being brought up here and everybody says we have to do something about it, and nothing was done 2 years later. I think we have I recall such a conversation in this committee about something else. So that's, I hope that this will convince you to move on with this. And once we go through this round, I would like your permission to go after this round to speak about the amount in the warrant article.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've heard is we will have a discussion about what to do to cement that we're going to move to do some sustainability work. And then we would have presumably a motion to approve the warrant. And at that point, once that's seconded, we'd discuss the amount.
So you heard my earlier position, and I said I was still listening, so I'll credit Yuval with making my decision-making more difficult tonight, which it should be. This is a very difficult thing we're doing. To respond to what I believe were your comments earlier, Lori, I would say we've got to do both, serious planning and discuss the ideas that are on the table. However, I'm alarmed that the ideas are coming from this table. I think the ideas have to be coming from a lot of sources, notably the high school, notably the parking person at the high school, notably parking experts. I mean, to leave the creativity around squeezing efficiencies out of that property to us, I don't think is very sensible. I think we can debate them, I think we can poke and probe them, but I don't think we should generate them all. And I think that it's contingent upon the administration, you leading it, of course, to bring to us information about what are we doing, what's working, what's failing. I will declare in the most forceful terms possible that I disagree with the notion that this is a problem that will never change. Carbon issues are going to change, folks, and the lead word is an important one here. They are going to change. They're changing for me, they're changing for you, they're going to change for our students. Yeah, I know convenience is a factor and hockey bags are a factor, but there are many, many factors, which is why I'm still listening and why this is going to be difficult. I don't expect to not see some pavement there someday. I think we will. But how much and how much it precedes real conviction that we've done everything else possible is what remains to be decided tonight.
So if I can just answer, with your permission for a second. I agree with everything you said, but I think we can do it in 3 rounds. We have 4 months until town meeting. We have to try, because otherwise it will once again will go into this thing that we do. You know, you will have a second chance.
There is an alternate view, however. There is an alternative view. One view is we kick the can down the road again and we'll be right here unchanged a year from now. Another view is this school committee means business. And we want to be different a year from now. And we want to be more prepared. So, you know, I'm not sure we can declare how this is going to get read by this committee or the larger community yet.
It's the nature, it's not this committee, it's the nature of things. The nature of things is when you have a lot of time to do them, you always wait until the last minute. You know, we tell our kids not to do it, but we do it and they do it. You know,
are you prepared to tolerate it again a year from now? I don't think any of us are, and I don't think you are either.
I think we should try. We'll have a second chance to say no if we fail. Give us a chance.
I'd like to make a comment.
Let's keep going, Heather.
For the most part, I agree with you all. I'm not going to go into it a lot again. I think we should approve it now so that we can have this conversation more before we finally decide whether to move it or not. The only thing I don't 100% agree with is that if we don't do it right now, we won't do it until a full year from now. This committee does mean business and we can move, but because of that, I think we can do it in the next 3 months. And I think we should.
So tactically, I don't understand how we could put things in place to show success or failure. We need to put something in place for the fall.
Right.
Whatever it is. And that requires a lot of planning to do that. So it needs to be done by May or June, or even earlier, April maybe. So That,
You're saying implement a plan in the fall.
exactly, how can we show results in
right.
such a short?
No, I think that we can show a plan of what we're going to do while we move the article forward. So,
Yeah, I agree.
can we implement a plan before
I agree.
town
Not
meeting?
to
No, we
implement
can't.
before,
But
we
I
have
think
to
we can
come to
have a
town
plan
meeting
before town meeting.
with a clear plan of how do we mitigate, how do we actually
But-
bring something different. I think we can do it in
That's
3
just
months.
so, everybody's gonna say, that's great, but I wanna see the results and come back to town meeting, you know, a plan could be successful, it could be a failure, we don't know.
Yeah, but that's true about everything.
Okay,
All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Let's
David?
wrap up.
Yeah, we should wrap up. So I think, first of all, you know, you talk about human nature, and I'm totally aligned with Cynthia on her comment. What wouldn't happen is that you pull the article. It starts to have a life, and there's a whole warrant process. It's a big deal, and it makes us look kind of silly, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
we've pulled articles.
I would, you know, if you say so, but that wouldn't be the lead strategy in
Every
my
year I've
book.
been here, we've done it.
Yeah.
And we
Okay.
actually
I
prepare
wouldn't-
in public. We prepare.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
We say very
I
clearly.
don't think it's a great
Okay.
idea. Okay, so that's one point. But I really like, you know, the word that Courtney used about squeezing, you know, things out. And I don't know why and you're right, it's a long-term thing, we got a plan. The trips is another thing. I mean, I know, I'm drawing the analogy, it may not be a perfect analogy, but it's the most recent analogy of, you know, getting at the core, which we haven't done yet, but getting at the core of the equity piece of those trips and working out something. I'm certainly committed to that. We should make these priorities to us to leave an imprint on what we do here. So, you know, I just disagree with the staging order of it.
So,
I get the sort of difference between the committee doing it and the subcommittee doing it, but I think one of the things, this gets to some of what Court's talking about, the subcommittee can go do some of that additional work that we aren't gonna be able to do. We have other stuff to do. I mean, this is, you know, we've created a number of things to do this year that we weren't planning to do. And this would be another one of those things. In order to get the kind of information we ought to be getting, I think a subcommittee works better at that because you can decide to go, okay, you're gonna go gather this information, you're gonna go gather that information. And that's a level of detail that I think it's gonna be hard for this committee to do between now and town meeting. I think a subcommittee can do that a little more effectively, just my opinion and the way things have worked in the past. I am gonna say, I've been on, this is my 6th committee. Every year it's been different. 3 of those committees prior to you have dealt with this issue, have asked the administration and the administration prior to this to find ways to mitigate the parking problem. To date, we have been unsuccessful. And so we have had that conviction that we have done everything the court talks about. So I think we are delaying the inevitable, as I said a few minutes ago. I also agree with David on if we move this and put it on the warrant, it will very likely be on the warrant to town meeting because it will, we will go out and we will give presentations on it and, I don't think that the people who have felt we need parking at the high school have changed their opinion dramatically based on what's gone on since the last town meeting. And there likely will be other voices in the affirmative on that because we have another year's worth of parents and students who have experienced what goes on there. So I think that's why I said when I first started talking, I think we should move it. I think we should move to put it on the warrant. I think we should move it to town meeting. And I think we should do these other things in between. And I guess what I would say is if what you're talking about doing with a subcommittee or the committee is coming up with things that we are going to implement and see results on that would mitigate the need for parking, then I would vote no. Because it's not gonna happen. We're not gonna get it implemented. These things usually get done, especially with parking at the beginning of a year. There are things that have to be done to deal with them. I think recognizing the work that the schools are doing on the sustainability front is important. Having an open discussion about the things we are doing, and are there things that we as the committee can get behind and move more quickly. Because we have the focus of this, we recognize that, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anybody sitting at the table that the idea of doing a parking lot at the high school doesn't in some way cut against their grain. It cuts against mine. But as you've all said, we're here to help guide and support the schools. And the schools are there to support the students. And student wellness is an issue here. I have to put aside some of my other beliefs about the way things ought to be done because I'm a school committee member. And my job is first and foremost to support the workings of the district. And I have abandoned in the past, because we have been here with 3 other committees, 2 others on this very topic, I have abandoned my own personal beliefs to do what I believe is right for the school district. And I've done that, I will do that again tonight. I don't do it haphazardly. But there is a lot of work that this committee will do going forward. This is an issue that needs to get put to bed and dealt with and put behind us so we can do the big things that we are capable of doing. We have a superintendent who's halfway through her 3rd year with us, finance director who's halfway through her 2nd year. We are seeing great progress. We should try to stop hindering our ability to help that by coming back to these kinds of issues over and over and over again. This is a new committee, 4 new members on this committee. This is not a new committee. We've been doing this. I can go find 6 more people who've been on this committee in the last 3 years to come in here and talk about the things we've been through. They're the same conversations. We ended up voting to move the article and went out and did a lot of work to get it to pass. And it would have passed if it had been on Monday night. So I'm done.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like,
Yeah.
before you, and then we need to get to the motion, which I have on paper because we got pretty confused last time
Okay, good.
about motions and things like that. I agree with almost pieces of everyone's statements. I think I want to just give a little bit of context from this seat. So when I open this discussion by saying I'm not wedded to the timeframes, that's a little bit of my own parking apathy at this point. I'm fried on this conversation. It's just burnt us out. Mike Mastrullo's burnt out. Brian Miller's burnt out. I don't want to be in this conversation unless we're really in it and we mean it for this spring. I do commit to the work that needs to get done to show this community we're trying all of these other things. I am going to challenge the word that nothing's happened since last time. We leave these meetings, we leave a vote where it doesn't happen, we go back and we say, what else can we try? We've numbered the spots, we lined the Beatty Road, we're trying to encourage buses, we're adding transportation and sports where we can. We've been in and out of the carpooling discussion a bunch to the point where I think we have to finally say please don't bring it up anymore. It's using our time and not purposely.
Why is that?
We have some serious legal considerations.
So all the other districts that do it are
There's
doing it
only one
illegally?
that I found, which is Wellesley.
Edina and Weston and Wellesley.
So maybe there's more reason. I need help. That's the point of the subcommittee is that I don't want to, I feel it's a little misrepresentative to say we've done nothing.
But I never heard that before, that's all.
Yeah, we've talked about it even here.
No, but I mean, I've sent, so I just asked for feedback from how other districts are doing it if it's illegal.
And I don't have the answer to
Okay,
that.
that's
I've
fine,
reached
that's
out to one district and they did not respond
Okay,
to me.
that's fine.
So, I think just the point being, the part I heard a little bit tonight, and I'm having some recollection to where we were about 2 months ago at the building committee when we had to pick a designer, and it was this conversation. It was exactly this conversation: education, priorities in what a designer might bring, and sustainability strengths in another designer. And I had to say, I'm going to say it to this group again, I will never sit here and say sustainability, being leaders, or any of that should be the priority above the well-being of our kids that are in our seats right now. I think we're doing a really good job of leading sustainably, and I think we're going to package it better so everybody knows what we're doing. But last year this conversation was about student wellness, and we really haven't talked much about that. I appreciate you brought it up tonight. This is incredibly stressful on our kids and what it does when they don't know where they're going to park, and the extra time to get to school, and the angst. And we haven't really had the forum for whatever reason this year to talk about that. So I do just need to end with, I'm going to sit here and advocate for the kids, which means that, while I'm not going to sell you on that this has to be a done deal, I'm going to ask that you at least consider keeping it alive tonight so that we have a placeholder on the article and can continue to have these conversations in subcommittee and here, and however we're going to structure that. And we do need a structure desperately, is part of my other feedback. I do think you're at a point where I need you to read the motion and second it, and then if there's going to be other discussion, which would be part of the process,
We can still discuss it.
that you have that.
That's fine.
The motion article here is reflective of the cost that you saw in the slide, which is the one with the design embedded in it. We printed them for you tonight. We had a lot of trouble following it on the computer last time, so this front page is your motion as a school committee. The second page is going to also say motion, but it would be the motion that shows in the town articles in both communities. So you don't want to read this, you want to read this. So I'm going to just hand these so you're got it all in front of them.
I want to put one thing in front of that, because I think it's clear that the committee wants some sort of understanding and commitment that we're doing something firm, which was asked by a number of people.
Yeah.
And I agree with Cynthia, we shouldn't vote on a subcommittee on the same night we decided that maybe we ought to have one. And it looks like we'll have a meeting next week, so instead of it just being executive session, we can come into session and talk about the structure of that and who might be on it if we do a subcommittee. I don't exactly know how to do this, other than we look each other in the eye and say we're gonna commit to something next week. Whether it's a committee or a subcommittee, I pretty firmly believe it ought to be a subcommittee, but we can have that conversation next week after a motion's made. And whichever way you want to go, we go. So is that enough for those who, before they vote on this, and it sways their vote, is that enough for you that we all commit to each other tonight?
Sure.
That we will next week do something firm with dates and times. And
I don't know if,
I would offer up one opinion, and that is I want to move ahead on this next week regardless of how this vote goes.
Yeah.
We've wanted this for a long time.
Yeah.
If we listen to our own words over the last 30 minutes, we're conflicted about whether we have conviction or not that we've done everything possible, is my read of our discussion. So I think we need to have more clarity and conviction so that we can bring that clarity to the community and ask for the better part of $1 million. So I don't think this vote relates to our need to
no, but I
move
think
forward.
my point was some people needed to know that we were going to do that. To vote.
yeah,
So-
I requested.
so we are
I would just
committing
say
to do
very-
that,
very-
no matter what.
Very clearly, I'll say something here that might actually give you three. At the end of the day, the practicalities of this thing, as we hear it, none of us know how the vote will go, but it actually sounds as if, once again, there is three people that are very clear about one way, three others that are very clear about the other way, and I'm sitting in the middle. Actually, no. So might make it easier for you. I'm going to vote for the motion, but I'm going to say loud and clear, especially because something Wally said. David said that if we voted now, it will have to go to town meeting, and I said no. And actually, you said it will because it's the nature of things. So I'm actually here now, clearly in public say that unless we will find a way to bring, I don't think that we will have a way to come with results, but we will come with something, with a decision of what we come to town meeting and implement on the 31st of August 2020 as an addition to this project. And if we will not have a clear decision about something like this, and we come to the town meeting with the same thing we came last year, I'm actually going to vote to stop it and not to move on. So how we will find a way, the chairs, to actually put it into action. So I invite my friends to do the same. Which means to vote for it now with a clear message to the community, we will stop it. If we will not be able to come with a solution, but I think that we should be able to come within 3 months. Because if we won't be able to come within 3 months, what? We have another 3 months, it will make a difference? No, it will not. So,
I'm fine with that.
All right, so I'm gonna ask if somebody move this and you'll
Yeah,
get
so
into that
can I
part of the
have a
discussion.
motion that the Concord Carlisle School Committee votes to approve the CCRSD capital warrant article in the amount of $848,410 for purposes of the design and construction of the parking lot at CCHS.
I gladly move so.
I'll second.
But I'm very
Can we go to the vote?
sorry.
All in favor?
No.
Is there
There's a
Oh,
discussion.
you do have something.
Yeah, there's a discussion. I want to go back to the number.
Yep.
I totally agree with Wally that to come to town meeting with a more conservative number and to be able to actually go back from this and come and do it cheaper is the way to do it. But I actually think that my problem was not with the town meeting. My problem was with driving the bids up by advertising very clearly the warrant article. I think that in this project, from my little experience lately, I think that in this project we have too many luxuries built into this number. And I think that we can reduce the contingency and then reduce some things in the quote, in the cost evaluation. So I actually think that we're totally safe. I think we're safe with reducing it for 100,000. I have to remind everybody one thing. We go to town meeting, they approve it. We take bids out and we get numbers that we don't like. We don't have to go and actually do it. You know, if we don't like the bidding, we can rebid. We don't have to go and do
that
it.
happens more than we tell
Precisely.
you all.
So I just want to actually put things in proportion. You know, at the end of the day, I think that we're driving the price up by doing it in this way. And I think that there are too many $100,000 contingency, which is like 15% contingency, plus granites and this and drainage in $100,000. I think we should reduce it. I mean, we'll reduce the number, reduce it for $100,000, and then reduce the numbers within the granites and the drainage and stuff. We still will have a decent amount of contingency with a different breakdown of the amounts. We still have, you know, we don't go in the number here, we don't go into the breakdown yet. We just in the presentation. So we have time to change, they have time to change the granite and stuff to actually fit into this. So we'll still have a very decent 50% a contingency, but we remove a little bit in the drainage, a little bit in granite, and I think that this project can be done considerably.
Are you going to amend the motion?
I want to try and, I don't know how to do it, but you have to tell me how, but I
You have to
actually
make
want
a
to
motion
amend
to
the.
amend.
So, I don't know if somebody wants to answer before I do the motion.
Well, you can make a motion.
You can make a
then we
motion.
can
So
talk
I
about the
make
motion.
a motion to amend the warrant article in the amount of $100,000 that is now contingency
Why'd you say
You
700?
mean $100,000 less?
less.
So just why'd you say
Just
700?
amend it to a number.
So I will move to amend the warrant article to the amount of $748,410.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I think the one comment I'd make is just to remind you procedurally, whatever number you put in, if it were to go forward today, it has to be your maximum. You can lower it at any point. So if it feels rushed, you could, I don't even know if I want to offer a recommendation. Today's your maximum, so if it's something you want to change later, you can lower it.
We can lower it.
You can't go the other
We can't
way.
increase it.
Yes,
So
Jared,
just-
what do you think? It's numbers.
Whatever the superintendent says.
Oh, no, we actually talked about this earlier today.
I actually.
You know, it makes us a little nervous to not have the contingency in the article. That's the
No, no,
I don't think he's saying that.
Yeah,
He's
let's leave
saying,
this-
take out some of the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
Let's leave
but I
this
think
to us.
we can talk about it.
Don't put Jared on the spot on this.
Well, I
So,
was-
wait,
sorry.
have you,
He made his motion.
you made your motion? Why don't we start here?
Yeah, I agree. I think a sharp pencil is always good, it shows some due diligence, and I believe that if, I mean, the guy admitted it today, Mr. Perry, that they can take some stuff out, they could always take it out, then you've got plenty of contingency, right? So, push the issue. I don't quite agree on the bidding, and they look at the bid and blah, 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 because I presume Gail or whoever runs a, pretty competitive bidding process. But I think, it has gilded the lily, and I'm stuck on $8,000 a parking space, and, beyond my other things, cost is actually not the highest for me, but it's a lot of money. I think about my constituency in Carlisle. I mean, they don't, as I said last time to Court's question, I'm not sure they'll, be upset about the environmental piece of it, but they're very cost conscious, and if it's felt to be, overreaching, which is mostly how they view Concord items, forgive me, that, they won't like it. So I think showing, forcing that issue, I support that.
Heather?
So I'm not against the idea of potentially value engineering it in concept. I would be uncomfortable doing it tonight because of the fact that this is our max tonight. I feel like that's something that we could look at over the next couple of weeks also and look at. I would also say, I remember in the past, actually, the point that you're bringing up about it driving up bids potentially, I remember asking that question in the past of Jared, and I think even of John years before, and the answer always being, it's a competitive market and the bids tend to be competitive, and a lot of times they do come in under what our cap is that we've gotten approved at town meeting. So that was a big concern of mine, I think, in several of my first kind of bidding process things that we were going through. And I've seen it play out that it doesn't seem to end up as much of a risk as it seems that way. So I'm not as uncomfortable with it. Again, I'm still okay with sharpening the pencil. I just don't think we should do it tonight on a whim. I think we should keep our max as a max and then potentially lower it, because we can't increase it if we realize we need a little more than that.
What will change in the next few weeks? I mean, we had answers from, it's my
We had
Let's
some
keep
rough
going.
answers.
Let's just keep going around here. Are you done,
I'm done.
Court?
I'm also on the
Cynthia?
amendment.
So my only question is, once the design is done, could the cost of the project go down?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could go up.
Definitely.
But that's what we're trying to balance, right? So the fact that we took that part of the piece away, doing the design process before town meeting, we're trying to be conservative with the number. We could value engineer, I guess, based on this. That's not a design, so
Right.
that's
This
why-
is a proposal.
Yes.
Right.
So we've been whispering about the words we're using.
Yeah.
This is a proposal. It's
Not a
not a
design.
design,
So we
a
really can't-
contract, a bid.
I'm
Any of
gonna
that.
say we should wait on this, but I would be, I don't know how we could even value engineer because we don't have a
Because we don't
design.
have design.
Yeah.
I'm actually okay sharpening the pencil here, because we're roughly we're taking off the extras, right? We discussed the granite curb, that's the extras, and we can do without. So the design, this proposal is has a lot of cushion from what I understood when this representative was talking about. So they already have built in a cushion, and we're just, for most part, we'll be shaving off some of the extras that we don't need. So if that helps in the way that this project is going to be looked at in the future, it's not a deal breaker for me.
If I may,
No. We have an opportunity after today to value engineer, and I could use that term loosely because we're not engineers, and we don't have a project design or for nothing, we have an estimate on what this might cost us, and we're a public entity and we have to put numbers on things to get funding authorization for them, and it is a whole lot easier to not use all the money than it is to go get some more. So I think it would be, I think we'd be errant in not voting this number. This is the only number we have put together by professionals. And I think we should put it together. If we want to say we don't need granite, we could use something else. I would say walk around the campus and see what else is around, because whatever we build ought to look like that. There are aesthetics involved here, not just trying to shave some money. So I think we would be, I can't be in favor of cutting the contingency in any case, but I could be in favor of changing some of those things down the road. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that's what this is about. We are a long way away from knowing what this project is going to cost. We've got somebody in Washington who seems hell-bent on going to war in the Middle East, which, a good piece of this is petroleum-based.
Yeah.
So, I think we are chewing at something that really right now is not part of what we need to be worried about. If we want to go back and ask Gail, what would you cut to get us down by $100,000, we can take a look at what that would be. And we can always change it anytime. On the floor of town meeting, we can adjust
to
it.
withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Pardon?
I'm happy to withdraw my motion.
Thank you. So
Okay.
we're back to the motion on the table, which is that the Concord Carlisle School Committee votes to approve the CCRSD capital warrant article in the amount of $884,410 for purposes of the design and construction of the parking lot at CCHS. All in favor?
I'd like to speak more about
Okay.
it. We'll skip the irony of the reference to being burned out. I think we're all burned out, but we're talking about sustainability, but we're talking about student wellness, but ultimately we're talking about the practicality of moving this forward, and the question mostly is when. If school personnel have had it with this issue, but you're still pressing forward in spite of the fact that it's now getting difficult after many years. Leading question, does your high school leadership have the bandwidth and the stamina to really test out some of the creative solutions that are going to convince two communities that everything possible has been
Yeah,
done?
no, I had that conversation before this meeting. We do, and we're committed. We need I think what we need at this point is another round of brainstorming, and I rest that on the shoulders of this committee. I think the subcommittee gives us a structure, but it needs to come from other places. We're ready to try other things. The other thing we talked about that I probably do need to share, there's a certain amount of stuff we need to have some backup to for us to try. If it's going to be disruptive to kids' lives and parents' lives, if we throw out an idea that's really got some of that in it, and this committee hasn't been part of that discussion, which I realize now has been some of the missing piece, that for us to come up with the ideas that are dramatic and do them by ourselves is only going to make our lives a lot more challenging. So I think, I don't know if that answered that question, but that's the conversation that Mike
this
and I had.
committee proved that he's willing to do dramatics.
Yeah.
She wants support.
I'm looking for backup, yeah.
What support, not drama.
Well, support, the drama's going real strong. Just need more drama.
Looking for a little cover, yeah.
We've had plenty of drama.
So Court, thank you. Court, I appreciate that question very much, because
Yeah.
there's a big picture view here.
And I'm sympathetic to the fact that you've
Yeah.
got issues that should be more important.
Yeah. But I think if we're on the path towards a long-term plan and a solution, that is very motivating to
Okay, good.
put ourselves on this.
So, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is that 4? Opposed?
Nay.
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 Ayes have it. I
Okay.
have to take a bio break.
Well, hold on. Let's adjourn the.
I know.
No. We have a couple
Ski
actually.
trip.
Can we do that?
Oh, we can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah,
Can
please.
we do that quickly?
Don't trust that anymore. Okay, so,
Just a comment, if I might, through the chair. We had a vote, but at the conclusion of a vote, we're one committee supporting the vote
Yes,
and the way it went
course.
down. And we wouldn't want any misunderstanding in any quarter about that.
Correct.
Thank you.
thank you, Court. And I think the work that we've put ourselves on to set out to do between now and town meeting will indicate that. Thank you, everybody, for a robust discussion tonight. So what are we doing here?
Okay,
I
so
just
there's
took the-
one trip that just came through late. I would move that the Concord Carlisle School Committee votes to give final approval for the CCHS Nordic Ski Team trip to Jackson, New Hampshire from January 18, 2020 to January 20, 2020, with the condition that a signed district liability insurance waiver is received from all participants.
It'd be a pleasure to second that.
Okay, great.
Any discussion?
Yes. So, my take on last minute approvals of trips is very clear. And I'm going to support it, but I'm going to take this advantage to say that I would ask, as one of the members of the policy subcommittee, I would ask urgently, I would ask the administration to come to us with a suggestion of change to the policy in which domestic trips that are sport-related will be approved by superintendent. Such a motion should not come to school committee. You know, the last-minute trips, because they won another competition, they have to go to another competition, does not have to come to school committee. So I think that sport-related domestic trips should be within the scope of the superintendent. Massachusetts law allows it.
Really, for West State line, I thought. Anyway.
So I think we can take that recommendation.
Take that
Recommendation
So I
to
just,
the
but
whole-
I just.
But I think out-of-state trips.
That was just a good moment to,
Yeah.
this is
We'll
an
do that.
excellent example, because it's last minute, because it doesn't go through the two-stage approval that we should have. This is an excellent example that this should not come to us.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a nice trip. Take a motion to adjourn the region.
Move to adjourn the region.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll be back.
And with apologies to those who are waiting for the CPS meeting, we need 2 minutes bio break. We will be right back.
2 minutes?
2 minutes, 2 minutes. And, well, we're already in session. Welcome back, calling the Concord School Committee meeting back into order. Thank you for waiting while we took a short break. We now have some fun, positive stuff to talk about, which is great. We have all heard briefly about the Concord Association of Music Parents. They're doing a lot of work to support our music students. We're so excited that they have started this group, and they have come to talk to us and tell us a little bit about themselves.
Come on up.
Erin, thank you for teeing them up. They've even brought some slides.
Should I just take
Do you have? So come on up.
Yeah,
You
do
can
you wanna
come to
sit?
the
Do you wanna
chairs.
stand?
You can both come up. You can stand by the screen. You can dance for us.
That mic is not, I don't think.
You should act and sing.
Whatever you feel comfortable with. So welcome.
Great, and thank you so much for having us.
Well, Wally's going to be text to board first.
Thank you for having us. So my name is Melissa Liazis, and I'm the president of the Concord Association of Music Parents, and I'm also the parent of a 7th grader at Sanborn who plays the tuba, and a 5th grader at Willard who plays the cello.
Nice.
And with me is Elizabeth Winterkorn, who is our treasurer. So thank you, first of all, for having us. So we just wanted to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about who we are, what we've been doing since we formed last year, and what we're hoping to do in the coming year. And if you have any questions, of course, happy to answer those. So we are a newly created nonprofit group of parents to support the music performance programs in the elementary and middle schools. So those are the band, orchestra, chorus, and in the middle school there are some auditioned ensembles also, wind ensemble, chamber orchestra, honors choir, and jazz band. So that is who we are. Our next slide, this is a list of our board members and folks who've been working very hard to get our group going and off the ground. So you can see we have a number of folks here. Have been working very closely with Chris Nossi in the band program and Dan Riverberg in the chorus, as well as, we have lots of other parents who have volunteered to help along the way as well. But this is the sort of the leadership of our group. Next slide. So we have created a mission for ourselves to support the music performance programs in the public schools through fundraising, through advocacy for music education, and through engaging with the broader community, with the goal to ensure access to music education and an enriching music performance experience for all students in the public schools, for hopefully all students to be able to access that and take advantage of it. We have put together a series of values to guide what we are doing in our group. We believe that music performance is a very valuable educational experience for all children in the schools, that they benefit from that. It enriches their broader educational experience and our community. We've been working closely with the music teachers and the school administration, and we've been very particularly appreciative of Mr. Cameron, who's been very supportive in the middle school and getting this group going, and in the music performance programs. Have also reached out to the principals of the elementary schools who've also supported us being there, so that's been great to have that kind of partnership and support from everyone who is involved. So, what have we been doing? So we just formed this group, as we said, basically last summer, started meeting. We have done quite a bit in that time. We have organized ourselves as a board and recruited other parent volunteers to help us. We have formally incorporated ourselves as a nonprofit corporation. We've gotten approval from the IRS to be a 501c3 nonprofit, which is great. Registered with the Attorney General's office as a charitable solicitor, so we've kind of done all the legal things we need to do to get ourselves going. We designed and launched our website, concordanth.org. If you have a chance to take a look at it, you can check it out. Tell us a little bit more about what we are doing. We are working very hard on some fundraising to support some of the music performance programs. So I was a parent last year who had run an silent auction last year to support the trip that the auditioned ensembles in the middle school did to New York City. This year, as you know, they're doing a trip to Quebec City in May, which we're all very excited about, and we appreciate the support that you've given for that. So we're trying to offset some of the cost of that trip for the students because, it is kind of an expensive trip. So we had a second silent auction, which we just completed, raised about $5,000, which is really great. Yeah, we're very, very happy about that. We also had an international weekend trip donated to us by the tour company that is running that Quebec City trip. So it's 4 days, 3 nights in London or Paris. And so we're doing a raffle for tickets to win that trip to also raise some more money. So that is ongoing right now. And we're trying to reach out beyond just the parents of the students in the music program. So we're doing booths at Crosby's and at Deborah's and at Middlesex Bank to try and kind of reach out to the broader community to sell some of those raffle tickets. So we're very excited about that. We also have been doing merchandise sales of, t-shirts for band, orchestra, and chorus, which the students are excited to wear. And that's another fundraising thing. We are planning to, hopefully, in addition to offsetting some of the costs of this trip, to fund some clinicians to work with the different music performance groups as kind of, an additional enriching experience for them, and some choral accompanists for their concerts. And since this is our first year, we're still kind of figuring out how much we're going to raise and what we're going to be able to do. So hopefully next year we'll be able to do even more. So again, what are we doing in 2020? We'll be continuing with this fundraising. There's also the Middlesex Jazz Festival, which every year has given a nice donation to the music programs. And they, I think, intend to this year as well. They're also asking us for some help with selling t-shirts and some other things at the Jazz Festival, so we are planning to help them with that this year. We're looking just to, spread the word to more parents about what we're doing and to members of the community. We've been doing a lot of outreach to parents, but we're looking to continue to do that. We really appreciate the support that the administration has given to the music performance program, so looking for more of that continued support and time and talent for people who want to help us out. So that's what we've been doing. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, all of those things, and I think one of the things that really has motivated us to do this is that we have such an amazing set of music educators, especially in the middle school, and they get these kids really involved and really motivated to perform music and to do it together. And while they get good support through the school, and that should continue, in order to really help offset some of the cost concerns that we know that you guys have discussed and shared, and we share as well. We want to help the teachers give these kids these experiences and do so by helping on the outside to help all of these kids. And we share your same concerns about the cost of these trips and where they're going and what kind of educational experience, but also what kind of musical experience and what kind of life experience. And so if we can help that from the parental sort of standpoint, it really helps the teachers do their jobs even better. And we want to be able to offset whatever we can.
First of all, I would like to thank you for coming, and this committee had the privilege of actually following the evolution of the trip that ended up in Quebec, and we talked about it in the previous meeting, that we really appreciate how it's streamlined according to the instruction, how it came back in the way we all want to see trips, both in financial and educational needs. So it's very nice of you. I've heard that you're actually encouraging families to go to concerts, take their kids to concerts.
Thanks to the generous donation.
And I can assure you that the same thing will be repeated, and you can actually count on next concerts to offer to your community for free. But you both have kids that are finishing middle school. Why, if you have all this in place, you don't include the high school music program?
There is actually already a separate
CC
parents
Pops,
group,
yeah.
that supports the music performance programs at the high school. So
Interestingly, there was a discussion between CC Pops and Mr. Nossi and Mr. Riv in advance of the creation of this. And the thought was that CC Pops as a CC organization would not be beneficial to come down and cover into the middle and elementary schools that are Concord only. And that it would be better to have a smaller sub-organization that really was focused on the 4 through 8 that are in this system that really is our system as opposed to the CC system.
Yeah, makes sense.
I just want to thank you. Your energy, you're keeping schedules that look like mine. I'm running into you at all these night events, all the back to school nights, all the concerts, and I just really applaud how much not only enthusiasm, but you're putting in a lot of time. So it's great to hear it's paying off and you're
Definitely.
collecting such great rewards already. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank
And
you
if
very
you, have you found much involvement from the elementary school parents? I know it's only 4th and 5th graders who are involved, but is there much interest from them coming up before they get to the middle school?
Some. I mean, I think it's been more focused a little bit on the middle school so far.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some interest from them, and I think
That's
as we
great.
get more established as an organization, like we're trying to get in there early, so
Right,
we're all
exactly.
back to school nights to kind of, publicize ourselves to people like right from the start when their students get signed up.
Yeah.
And, get them involved early on. So that's our goal. We're continuing to build.
Good.
I think the bandwidth, as you all know, when you're a small group is, focused on a high yield, and currently that's the
Middle
middle school place.
Yeah.
I think that the 4th and 5th graders, certainly, so chorus doesn't go down that far in terms
Right.
of bandwidth.
Yep.
But certainly Mr. Piper at Willard has started to show some interest, and I think that as we have more bandwidth, more people, and more financial ability to do so, being able to support down into the elementary grades for choruses or for, across the boards and things like that to bring that down there as
He
well.
wants to become sort of institutionalized,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, as you've referenced, we have debated the question of financial support for things like this, for trips and other things, a lot. And I would just say it's groups like this that are one of the things that make Concord such an amazing place to live and learn and to be in the schools. We're very lucky to have parent groups like you just coming into existence like this and supporting us. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Any other
Well,
questions?
I'd like to echo the thanks, of course. And just a question, are you and the Instrumental Music School of Concord Carlisle in communication yet? Because that's a nice after-school resource for our kids that is self-funded, and you are homegrown as well, trying to infuse resources into the schools. So, I would hope that the two organizations look for any possible synergy, if there is any, to help each other.
We're definitely trying to look at synergy with other sort of local groups, the Concord Orchestra and Concord Chorus, and sort of the adult versions to try to create some of those connections as well.
Oh, great.
And the music school is an in-house,
Yes.
as you know, right?
Yes, my kids both take lessons there.
You know well, yes.
Know well.
Okay, great.
Great.
That's great. Other comments or questions?
Well, this one's been said before too, but thanks for being so patient.
I know, exactly. Sometimes our discussions go a little longer than we expect them
Very
to.
educational.
Okay.
I'm glad you think so.
I'm glad. Well, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Yes.
for your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate
Great to
that.
have
Have a great night.
Okay,
Okay.
and we move on to our last item up. So, building committee update. Obviously, we do a brief version at almost every meeting. But Court and I thought tonight we could just go into a little more detail, because obviously there's a lot going on with the building committee. This committee, although it's not part of the building committee, obviously has a great stake in what's going on. And so we wanted to kind of back up a step, do a high level again of where we are, but also go into more detail and kind of, I guess, hash through everything that's going on and let you ask any questions and just discuss any of it that you might want to.
And we'll do this again.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we've seen a hiatus of about 3.5 weeks or something since the last committee meeting, which was, I believe, December 19. And we say often that it's a town committee, so people understand that it's not, it's a school, but it's a town committee, notwithstanding the fact that it meets in this room for all kinds of necessary reasons. The schedule of when different milestones will be accomplished is not set yet, but it will be very, very soon. But we do anticipate a town meeting either very late summer of 2020, late enough so that we have confidence that people wouldn't be disaffected by the date, or early fall. We don't want to see that the turnout is interfered with, real or perceived, by the date, but we also want a date that is sensible in terms of efficiencies for the town to run a town meeting. The date that we are rather clear on, although I'm not sure we're as formal as we could be yet, because the whole calendar has to be determined, is if all goes well, an opening of fall 2023. And this meets the objective of going it alone without state support, regrettably, but giving us some time advantages of a full year and therefore some savings as well as a little more flexibility in our design. You all know that SMMA was brought on board. This was a difficult decision in all the right ways, because we had some very strong contenders, and this is an organization that knows Concord well, worked on our high school, and is one that I think has earned the trust and the praise of various general contractors in eastern Massachusetts, and we're going to work with one of them someday. So. These folks are very capable of affecting good relationships with the GC, which I think holds us in good stead. I'm not going to say much more because I know Heather is going to add to it, but just by way of dates, a week from today, January 14 at 7 o'clock at Sanborn is a community meeting, otherwise referred to as a visioning session, where we want to present what we think we know, present what we think we need, but do it with a very sincere and open invitation to hear from people in terms of questions, comments, opinions, and so on. One place I think, and Heather and I have spoken about this, one thing that we're going to turn to you for frequently, I think, in the coming months and years, is outreach to invite more people into the process, because we're dealing with a very interested community, but a very busy community, and we're going to need to get their attention early and often on this project because of its magnitude and because of its importance. And then the next regular meeting of the school building committee is on a Thursday morning next week. That's January 16th, 7:30 in this room. They are televised by Minuteman Media, thankfully, so that people for whom that time is an impossibility are going to see it promptly broadcast.
Yeah, I'm going to add one that was just identified yesterday, so we're all catching up, because the sustainability subcommittee is meeting tomorrow, 1:30. So that's another meeting that's been.
And that's one of these subcommittees.
One of the subcommittees, and the point is they've created a charter of the sustainability mission, essentially, and they're beginning their first conversation. It's really their first formal discussion with SMMA and looking at the charter. Well? That'll be here tomorrow at 1:30.
So somebody who's more steeped in this than I, that's you, Heather.
Yes.
Yes.
More steeped in what?
More steeped in the.
In all of it? I thought you were talking about something specific.
In the middle school project.
Oh, sorry, I was adding this up to my calendar. Back to the project. Yeah. I mean, I can go back to kind of what we've done more recently, or go high level now. I think we're both very steeped in all of this. Gordon and I are very involved in this. I'll just kind of go back to that. You were going to do which one? The more recent one, right?
I don't have it in front of me, so go ahead.
I'll just kind of do the high level. It's somewhat the review, and I'm going from what basically is becoming the annual report submission that'll go into the town's annual report. So a lot of this you guys know. I just want to make sure we all kind of stay on the same page. Obviously, we're working, getting closer to the feasibility study part of this, which is exciting, before we get to the actual design. The committee has done a lot of site visits along the way. I know we've told you about some of them. It's been a really educational process in seeing these various schools that we've seen. I think a lot of us walked away with insights, with inspiration, with things that we loved about those buildings, things that we didn't like so much, various things to compare, which is really helpful to to have some concrete images of schools and how they can affect education, which is really the biggest conversation here. One of the most interesting ones, one of the most interesting educational conversations we had was at Hanscom, right nearby. And because they were really talking about how their new building enabled a change in how they taught. And it was really exciting to hear about. And it's not just the new building, there's a lot of preparation that we need to be doing with teachers, with staff, with everybody to get there. But that's one of the things that we're able to talk about now. There are various subcommittees that are active right now, which is great. Obviously, the sustainability subcommittee, the finance subcommittee has done some work to start to look at the numbers there. The education subcommittee has I would even say started to meet as much as started to plan recently. And that is what basically led to this forum that's coming up next week. So let's talk about that a little bit. It really, the nexus of it was as an educational visioning forum, because it's also the first big public forum that we're doing. It'll be open to, various feedback. And I would even say more than us talking and giving information, the point is to really collect information and brainstorm and hear what people have to say. We will do a basic update on where are we to date and what are we looking at. But we really want to get a feel from the community of what is this community's vision for middle school education going forward. And as you've all heard, we've done a little bit of that in the past. We did some educational visioning back in the spring. Some of you heard about it when we were working just through the facilities planning committee. So we have a nice kind of stepping stone base to start from there with a lot of good concepts. And now we have the opportunity with the educational subcommittee of the building committee to go a lot deeper. This will be the first step in that process. It's really this community forum is the stage where we will collect lots of ideas and throw them all onto notes and whiteboards and everything. And then we'll go and take a lot of those ideas and feedback and work in smaller groups and educational groups with teachers and administration and have some discussion sessions there with the subcommittee to start to pull those all in together and start to figure out what they look like and what this all means. And then we will have another public forum towards the end of that process, I would guess we have it scheduled a month and a half down the line. It's towards the end of February. February 27th, I think. Yeah. Where we will then share out, here's some of the ideas that we've heard, here's how we've fleshed them out, here's the educational take on them, here's the staff take on them, and come back with a bit of a summary of here's what we've heard so far and this is the direction that we're looking in terms of educational visioning. So that's kind of that committee's work. In the process of that, as we've talked about, we then need to fold in we need the touch points for all these different committees. The design subcommittee is going to be a very active group that's a part of the building committee. And obviously what's done in some of the others will all feed into the design subcommittee. So this educational visioning work will feed in, the sustainability discussions will feed in, the budget subcommittee discussions will feed, all of that will feed into the design subcommittee. And so these other committees are doing some groundwork right now, which will then enable to the design subcommittee to get more active pretty soon.
And that design will look like alternatives that then generate another set of conversations.
Right, exactly.
And for all the rigors of your job and Jared's, I think this is one area where every educator, you and everybody around you gets rather excited to have the kind of conversations we're going to have in the coming 6 months.
Yeah, and just to fill in a little bit of the visioning work, over the next 2 weeks, we have 3 days scheduled with the educators, and Ewing Cole is the other side of our architecture firm, and so we're going to spend 3 full days both talking on what we want teaching and learning to look like at a big picture level, and the second 2 days, every department rotates through and every staff member, and I shouldn't just say teachers, it's by far everybody, custodial, kitchen, everybody will rotate through and really give their feedback to the architects and help to inform what this will be, and gotta get corralled. And those are the one place we're not doing public meetings, more because we want to have that professional designer to professional educator discussion and really sit and talk, what do we want teaching and learning and the atmosphere of this learning environment to be, so we can take the feedback from the first forum, meld it with the rest, share out sort of categories of where it's going at the second forum before there's anything that comes to any scale of fruition. And that really then becomes what informs the design. I guess the other piece that, we probably should share just along the way here, there's a lot of minutia to all of this. I'm answering emails today, they need to go out and drill 4 borings on the sandboard fields to begin their site work. And Jared had to go to a neighbor and a butter and say, they're gonna have to put a flag, only a flag, they're gonna have to put a flag on your property, I'm like, no, that's not a letter, you're gonna go knock on their door and talk them through the fact that this is only a flag, navigating where they're gonna drill so that, at one point, the thought was, would they take trees down to drill? I'm like, oh, no, you're not.
No.
So just a lot of back and forth. Today's question was where they're gonna bring the big piece of equipment in on a school day and what time can they come in, So that's not stuff we're gonna spend public discussion time on, but I just thought since we're having kind of a long conversation tonight, but.
That will only get more fun.
It's all just gonna keep coming.
Especially for the neighbors.
We're good to our neighbors.
I'll be driving by every day.
Settings, we're good to our neighbors, but we've got really strong, the committee's super strong, the chairs are super, Tim and Dawn are just really, really doing a great job, and I think both professional firms, Hill and SMMA, have sent us really strong, capable leaders. There's a lot of people involved, I will say that's another part of, I'm a little bit of the spoke to everybody and trying to keep us all on the same page, so. But it's a labor of love, to Court's point, it's all forward thinking, I
have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have sort of a feel when what's the end date for the feasibility study, approximately?
The feasibility study part before the design happens. Let's see, the schedule had that as about a couple months. Do you remember the timeline of that?
Yeah, we have to give it, I don't want to misstate it.
That's fine.
It's all outlined in the documents we've been looking at.
So, and so my question is, how do all the community wants, obviously community wants a strong educational vision, but outside of that, doing some of these things would potentially impact the design of the school, whether we do them or not. And I would assume there's going to be a few different scenarios, the big gym versus the maybe bigger auditorium, town meeting space, community meeting rooms, and all that.
Those are all the big questions.
So, are they going to have, 5 different options, 3 different options, 1 option? And because you've discussed through it, what's maybe going forward, you can better make the community, the public understand sort of how that's going to work.
Sure.
The little bit I could say, based on a conversation with one of the chairs this morning, is, and help me out here, but his summation was probably all of this work will yield somewhere between 3 and 6 design options that are distinct enough to actually debate. And then get narrowed down, and that will be the expert work of SMMA and, excuse me,
That's exactly
SMMA. And their subs, because we were not only selecting a design team, we were selecting all the specialists they were going to bring in, which made that process all the more difficult because it was a one-stop shop for accountability, but many shops under that roof that we were bringing on board.
So one final question. You have a laundry list of things you've heard about from the community, but do you feel like it's complete? In other words,
by no means.
Okay.
Oh, no.
By no
We're
means.
starting, that's the forum next week.
It hasn't started.
Right, the forum next week is to start to create that laundry list. yes, we've heard ideas.
So I just want to be clear, it isn't just about educational visioning, it's about visioning for the community as well?
Yes, let me.
That's maybe a little confusing to people.
This would be, I think, an example of an answer. We can answer it many ways. First of all, we begin and end with, this is about education for middle school kids, and
Right.
Lori will never yield. So
As she shouldn't.
So don't try.
Hopefully that's what you
Um,
want to do.
That's why we hired.
But then we immediately get to questions like, is it a full-size gym for our community, as well as our student athletes? And to what degree do we have support for that? Is it a auditorium for performances, or is it a town meeting auditorium? Who are the stakeholders on a town meeting advocacy? That we're all going to learn that over time, I think.
Good.
And then bring it all back to, does it still meet the educational needs? And, oh, dare we say budget? Because
Yeah,
you know,
of course,
that
yes.
looms over this all the time.
I have a not a very popular question, but I don't think that I have it in me to ask popular questions. Pigging on actually something the superintendent said earlier about the stand she had to take between the choice according to sustainability or education. And so we have a subcommittee of sustainability and we have an education subcommittee. Is there a mechanism to actually mitigate these two things and create the right priorities?
Yeah, go ahead, Bart.
It's a very good
I'll
question.
answer that.
We could all answer that, but we are trying to foretell the future. Because we know that that's going to be the area where there are conflicts and trade-offs and compromises and accommodations. We're going to share some pain in those decisions. Not everybody's going to get what they want. So I don't think your question is, will that be done? But rather, do we have a good design to have that kind of robust debate where we can live with our decisions? That'd be the way I would
Because at the end of the day, I was here in the presentation of all the design field. And the lead presenter for SMMA actually made it very clear to this large committee that to get everything they want, including the budget they want, will not happen. You know, she was very clear about it. She just told the committee, not going to happen. So at the end of the day, there will be either money or sustainability or education, and at least I think that our job, and through the two members that we have sitting, is to really push the education. There will be so many others that will push the sustainability, but we have to actually be the safeguards of what the school is actually used
Absolutely.
for.
That's
I have
that's our
faith,
job.
the committee as a whole, I have faith, and even the folks who really care about sustainability really care about education too. So I have faith that this committee's gonna tackle that in a thoughtful and respectful way. It's gonna be hard, I'm not gonna say it isn't, but I'm comfortable that we're gonna make our way through it, yeah.
I don't feel like it's a them versus us mentality by any means. It's, we all know that there are difficult questions to tackle, and we're all gonna have to figure them out somehow. But I think everybody around this table as part of the building committee is in it for a building that supports education first and has a lot of other great benefits. I think that's
And there are people
fair.
around that table who have experienced these kinds of discomforts before, of balancing.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the charter that we're working on, the process that we've been through that?
Sure. Basically, the charter is our statement that, again, requires, I think, one more finishing touch.
Yeah, it's
as I
still in
recall.
process.
But basically, and I'll just quote this to you, initial drafts, and we're very close to finalizing, have guiding principles related to, and no, not necessarily a priority order here, a transparent and robust public process and engagement with Concord residents, a state-of-the-art educational facility for students and teachers, sustainability and resiliency goals, including landscape financial sustainability for the construction project and future building operations, as well as creating a flexible and adaptable structure that can serve both the needs of the school department and residents of Concord for a minimum of 50 years or longer. So again, not entirely complete, but the idea of this is a simple, high-level, bold declaration. So anytime we're confused, we return here and say, let's start again. What's this all about?
What are our priorities here? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where the charter stands now. And it can be looked at as a sort of pro forma document to hang on the door, but we're saying, no, this is going to be a living document. We're going to use this to guide and remind through the process, especially when we get confused about who's on first and who's on second. This is what tells us.
So this committee can meet again in 50 years to check whether...
Yeah. Of course, we've all made that commitment.
We can do a reunion.
That's
It's going to be a really expensive part of the business.
Yeah.
Let's keep it all on the block.
Yeah.
A reunion in 50 years to check whether we got the...
Any other questions at all? I think we should make it our business to simply report as often as we can.
Oh, yeah.
And you can tell us to back off, but you're the ambassadors around this. And I'll repeat one more time, you work on the communications part of this, which is critical because
Bring that up again
we're
before we
going to
wrap
need
up.
everybody's help in getting the word out. Whatever your opinion is about this, come get more informed to support whatever opinion you have. That's what we want you to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to bring up, actually. And specifically regarding next week's forum, we would love all of your help in terms of getting the word out. So we've so far sent out announcements to all the PTGs. We've sent it to the League of Women Voters, to the Council on Aging. We've sent it to the local preschools. So we're sending
the entire parent community.
the entire parent community, as well as to the town information officer, asking her to help publicize it as broadly as possible, town calendars and social media, etc. We also, thanks to Court's suggestion, it's nothing fancy, but I just threw the announcement into a Word document that we could, with a red border, that's as fancy as I got, that we could potentially print as a poster and hang up, physical posters at places in town. If we think that's a good idea, and we're looking for volunteers.
Flood the town from above.
Right.
Aircraft and actually speak that they be about sustainability.
Just let them drop.
An electric
plane, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but our point was
we're looking for volunteers with feet on the ground. So if you'd like to help at all, let me know and I'll email you a Word document that you can print 3 copies of and hang in 3 places in town.
because we're exploring all the digital means.
Yeah,
But we
and
need the old-fashioned means.
We just want to make sure people know
Who's
about
your
this.
neighbor? Would you want a lawn sign?
Even though I'm not a big fan, it's
Those
easy to
signs.
do Facebook pages with this stuff. So you might consider that.
Could be in front of the bank.
That's true.
The building, the high school did have a Facebook page.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, so there are some parents who I think are going to
take that on.
create a kind of a parent
But I'm
communication
telling you, you need to
effort.
have an official, I think you should have an official Facebook page. It's just so easy. It's so easy.
Yeah, we've worried
With
about
images and things like
because it's
that.
a public committee and I
Well,
guess
that last one had it.
If you're just pushing information out, it's
Yeah.
okay.
pushing information
They can't-
out maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people get confused. Is that the official building committee or was that a friends of kind of a thing?
I think what you should do is you should do it, but you should design it in a way that will not allow comments.
You can't turn them off.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Otherwise,
yeah, because-
what you have is we'll have people starting to
it's just outward.
start a discussion
Right,
about
right.
this. So you have to actually turn on comments to this.
Because we're on camera, I think we
Then
should
off.
note that
You have to discuss that with your committee.
the building
Right.
project has a link off the school district's homepage.
Yep.
And it also has a link off the town of Concord's homepage.
Which pretty much points to
So go to homepage, 1 click away, you're in the middle school
It's right on the main
page.
menu up top.
As long as we all understand that those that actually watch this are already involved.
Could well be.
That's right.
So actually we need to find ways to get to those that don't watch it.
Right.
That's right.
Well, thank you for the report.
Yeah, sure. Other questions or comments or thoughts? Great. It's exciting. It's moving along really well. It's such a great committee. It's really fun to be a part of it. Good. Anything else that anybody has? Then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.